Black Clover, the son of fire dragon Igneel. Chapter 41. The hot spring training ended as the King's Selection Knight's selection was about to begin. During that time, Asta and the others witnessed Drake and Mereoliona's intense training. Drake broke several bones daily, resulting in significant strength gains. He learned many magic territory techniques from Mereoliona. Crucially, Drake discovered Fal could help him bear the burden of Mana Zone, allowing him to sustain it longer towards the end of the training. Others also improved during the training and were confident about the selection. Let's just forget about Yami forcing them to peek at the women's bathhouse. The King's Selection Knight's selection began, but Asta couldn't find Drake. Drake had disappeared. He remained absent until the selection ended. When Asta asked Yami, Yami replied, "Does Drake look like he needs your concern? Do you have time to worry about him? Worry about yourself." Yami didn't know why Drake was absent, but he trusted Drake had his reasons. Drake had said he wouldn't forget he was a black bull. Yami told Asta to worry about himself because Asta had been selected for the King's Selection Knights and was awaiting orders to attack the Eye of the Midnight Sun. Despite defeating Veto and Fana, the Eye of the Midnight Sun remained a threat. The Clover Kingdom's confidence stemmed from the newly formed, undeniably powerful King's Selection Knights. Without Drake's interference, the selection proceeded as in the original story. The selected members were elite, including 3 captain-level figures: Mereoliona Vermilion Crimson Lion Acting Captain, Nozzle Silva Silver Eagle Captain, and Real Boismortier Azure Deer Captain. Mereoliona, the strongest, was appointed captain of the King's Selection Knights. But the attack order was delayed. A month later, Mereoliona stormed Black Bull's headquarters, taking Asta, Noel, and Luck. Mereoliona explained the situation. The Eye of the Midnight Sun's base, the floating dungeon within the Gravito Rock Zone. Everyone believed the king's announcement at the Star Fruit Festival had prompted their escape, further worsening his reputation, an unexpected bonus. The Magic Knights reinvestigated and discovered the Eye of the Midnight Sun had moved to the world's largest Mana Zone. The continent had 4 countries, named after playing card suits. Clover, Diamond, and Heart Kingdoms bordered each other. Only the Spade Kingdom was separated by a massive Mana Zone. The Mana Zone's size rivaled the kingdom's. The Eye of the Midnight Sun moved within it, making a decisive strike incredibly difficult. Julius changed tactics, deploying many Magic Knights to encircle the floating Magic Palace. Even Ghosh, who hadn't participated in the selection, was deployed. The floating Magic Palace's location was finally pinpointed. Mereoliona summoned the selected members to attack. On the Diamond Kingdom border, Drake, cloaked, held someone by the neck, lifting him high. A grimoire with the Diamond Kingdom's mark was shattering. Grimoires and souls are linked. When the owner dies, the grimoire shatters. After the grimoire vanished, Drake dropped the body. 2 more bodies lay at his feet, both with magical tools embedded, artificial mages from the Diamond Kingdom. The plan's about to start. What are you doing? A spatial portal opened. Raya emerged, complaining. Drake, still uneasy, used several fire dragons blazing inferno spells on the corpses until nothing remained. This guy was troublesome, I couldn't leave him. Raya, whose evil intentions weren't fully removed, felt no sympathy. Finish up, we have much to do. Drake nodded, following Raya into the portal. Drake had eliminated Morris, the Diamond Kingdom's former leader. Mars, having met Drake, had gone to the Witch's Forest and found his lost childhood friend. For his recovered love, Mars resolved to change the Diamond Kingdom's cruel system. He gave the king sleeping pills from the Witch Queen, disguised as longevity medicine. Mars seized power and began reforms, expelling Morris. Drake knew Morris would go to the Spade Kingdom and become a demon's apostle. He'd later extract wisdom, the accumulated magical knowledge, from the Heart Kingdom's queen. He'd shorten the Evil Tree ritual, completing it after the Dark Triad's defeat, opening the Netherworld's gate. Drake felt he'd soon leave this world. His understanding of world magic was limited, he wasn't sure if he could return after the final battle with the demon. He wanted to resolve some issues beforehand. After separating from Asta, Drake had tracked this major troublemaker, eliminating him. Morris was a skilled scholar but a weak mage. Without demonic power, his modification magic was mediocre. Only the 2 artificial mages were challenging, they were former 8 Shining Generals. But they were no match for Drake. Drake noticed his growth in this world had slowed. He'd learned and obtained everything he could. Further growth required time. This was why he hadn't participated in the King's Selection Knight's selection. There were no worthy opponents to improve. Drake didn't want to rely on time. He didn't have much time before facing Acknowledge. He decided to leave for the next world after defeating the demon. But he hoped the demon would make it a worthwhile final battle. In the Magic Knight's changing room, Asta was preparing to change into his King's Selection Knight's uniform when he saw Drake. Asta rushed over. Drake, where have you been? I was worried. Drake smiled and handed him a long box. Asta opened it, finding a worn-out sword with an ancient look and a clover symbol on the tip. Drake said, a congratulatory gift for joining the King's Selection Knights. You'll soon use its power. Asta took the sword, smiling. I don't understand, but thanks. Wait, you haven't answered my question. Drake shook his head. You'll understand later. I have a favor to ask. Drake grabbed Nero perched on Asta's head. Lend me Nero. Asta was about to ask when Noel called him for assembly. He responded and turned back to find Drake gone. Nero struggled when it saw Raya. Drake calmly addressed Raya. How's it going? Are you ready? Raya nodded. After Patry retrieves the magic stone and activates the reincarnation magic, I'll use telepathy to gather everyone at the floating dungeon, Gravito Rock Zone. Don't worry, they won't cause damage. Drake nodded. Clever. But how did you get all your comrades assigned to this mission? Raya smiled. That's simple. Patry, the boy possessing him, is in charge of this mission's arrangements. I told him about the forbidden magic seal on Licht. We needed everyone's power to help him recover. The rest was up to him. Drake gave a thumbs up. Well done. Raya continued, don't celebrate too soon. Many Golden Dawn members are reincarnated comrades. Transferring them all would be suspicious. Some remain in the capital. Problems might arise. Drake waved his hand. If it's not too many, it's fine. Other captains will arrive in the capital, they'll handle it. After Patry attacked the Wizard King, the absent captains would be summoned. Yami and Jack Green Mantis squad captain, alone could handle the rampaging elves. Drake visited the unconscious Fugolian. He'd initially worried about the lack of salamander affecting his recovery, but his concerns were unnecessary. Fugolian's life force and magic power were transforming. Upon awakening, he'd be stronger. Even without salamander, he could overcome this. This would just delay his awakening. It was unclear if he'd be ready for the plan. He'd be a powerful ally if he was. And Drake had another reason not to worry. The elves would target the royal family first, as they were the elves' greatest enemies. Drake didn't care about the royals' safety. Raya seemed to sense Drake's thoughts. You're surprisingly ruthless. But I don't mind. Drake smiled, continuing, the reincarnation magic tablet is at the demon god's skull, right? Raya nodded. Drake said to Nero, good. After the reincarnation magic is activated, we can revive the first Wizard King. His power is crucial against the demon. Nero, who'd been struggling, calmed down, staring at Drake. Drake was surprised to see surprise in a bird's eyes. Drake smiled. I grew up in Hage. I noticed the empty space on the statue matched the magic stone's shape. 500 years erased the truth, but clues remained. The strange reincarnation magic, combined with information from the elves, revealed the truth. Nero, you're too familiar with magic stones. Using forbidden magic changes one's essence, like your state. Drake's words were a post hoc rationalization. The girl who'd endured for 500 years wouldn't believe him otherwise. Nero was shocked. She'd thought Drake was just a talented mage. But he possessed incredible intellect, deducing the 500-year-old truth without clues. Drake would be surprised to know he was considered terrifying by Nero. Raya confirmed the plan and left. It was crucial, he had much to do. Drake placed Nero on his shoulder. Let's go. Hage Village is where we'll get all the magic stones. Drake's wings spread, he flew towards Hage Village. He sensed powerful magic. A massive magic circle appeared. Countless light swords emerged, forming a blinding white light. This was Patry's arrows of judgment, usable only after breaking his magic seal. Its range covered the entire Clover Kingdom. This could destroy the kingdom, but not Julius, who mastered time magic. But the target wasn't just Julius, it was the Wizard King. Julius couldn't counter the magic and fight Patry simultaneously. The swords fell, a clock appeared beneath them. As the clock's hands reversed, the swords dissipated, the sky returned to normal. The clock vanished. Is that over? Drake sighed. Powerful figures in other worlds often became unavailable, making the protagonists the heroes. Drake continued, he wouldn't rely on others. He reached the demon's skull. A light pillar erupted, scattering into countless lights in two directions. Reincarnation magic, activated. Drake entered the demon god's skull and saw the magic stone-embedded tablet. Patry was gone, likely meeting with the other reincarnated elves. Drake picked up the grimoire Patry had left, Vengeance's World Tree Magic Grimoire, abandoned to show his resolve. Drake collected the magic stones from the tablet. The first Wizard King's body was a statue, magically animated. He had limited activity time, they needed to wait for the Shadow King's palace to open before awakening him. Drake looked towards the mana zone, he could only wait for the Shadow King's palace to open and then defeat the demon. The King's Selection Knights arrived at the floating dungeon Gravito Rock Zone. Mereoliona's tactics were straightforward, they split into 5 groups and attacked. Mereoliona, Asta, and Zora, a Black Bull member, targeted Raya, the strongest. Raya evaded Mereoliona's attacks, stalling for time, frustrating her but remaining undefeated. The King's Selection Knights encountered Eye of the Midnight Sun members. Before the battles concluded, the reincarnation magic activated. The knights watched their opponents decay and turn to ash. Then, some knights glowed, their ears lengthened, markings appeared on their faces. Only a few remained normal. The good news was the enemy self-destructed, the bad news was their teammates became stronger enemies. Glowing with magic, Raya said, leave. Mereoliona, thinking Raya had stalled to enhance his power, was energized. Fool. We're not leaving. Raya grabbed his hair. This is troublesome. The wall shattered, glowing elves entered. My comrades aren't as easy to talk to as I am. Asta and Zora escaped with a heavily injured Mereoliona, even she couldn't defeat 4 elves. Asta was surprised Raya didn't pursue them but used spatial magic to let them escape. Yuno, though transformed, remained rational. He helped others escape, including Nozzle Silva, Silver Eagle Captain. Through Nozzle's communication device, they learned many magic knights, including many from the Golden Dawn in the capital, had become elves, attacking the 3 royal castles. The floating dungeon Gravito Rock Zone held many reincarnated elves, the remaining few couldn't handle the situation. With the capital in danger, Nozzle decided to go there. Raya contacted all the reincarnated elves using telepathy. He'd found and imitated this magic, it allowed communication with those marked with his magic power. Thanks to Clover Kingdom's diverse magic, Raya found this convenient spell. The original magic could contact 3 people. Raya, with his immense magic power, could contact all the reincarnated elves. He'd spent a month marking each comrade. Can you hear me? This is Raya. The newly reincarnated elves, almost driven by evil intentions, calmed down upon hearing Raya's voice. Congratulations on your reincarnation. Licht needs your help. Please gather here. A Golden Dawn elf said, I want to kill humans, but Licht is more important. A Crimson Lion King elf said, Licht is 1,000, no, 10,000 times more precious than humans. Another elf laughed. Raya hates trouble, why is he contacting us? He didn't slack off. Amazing. It's for Licht. The elves flew towards the moving floating dungeon Gravito Rock Zone. In the deepest part of the palace, Licht floated, lifeless. The elves gathered, filling the space. They hadn't truly slept long, having been sent to this era. But they felt like they'd been reborn, greeting each other like long-lost friends. Raya stood high. I hate to interrupt, but we have work to do. After silence, Raya continued, Licht hasn't awakened due to the forbidden magic. I've prepared, please input your magic power into this device. Combined, it'll break Licht's seal. Raya placed a metal device with magical runes before them. Raya had lied, this wasn't to break Licht's seal but to store power for the resurrection magic. This magic merged souls and bodies, the difficulty lay in the immense magic power required. The inventor was Sally, the Eye of the Midnight Sun's mage scholar. Raya had guided her. Combining the elves, magic power would quickly gather the necessary power and prevent manipulation by the evil intentions. Raya had planned to reveal the truth after their reincarnation, but Drake stopped him. The demon's avatar was among them, revealing the truth might change the demon's plans. Raya blamed the demon for the deception, using lies to keep his comrades calm. Looking at Licht, Raya said earnestly, Licht, I'll share your burden. I'll defeat the one who caused this tragedy. The entire Clover kingdom saw the glowing, massive floating dungeon Gravito rock zone flying towards the capital. Raya's urgency to end his people's suffering propelled the palace forward at incredible speed, faster than a mage on a broomstick. The palace approached Clover capital. Raya, from a high vantage point, saw the fires and smoke from his comrades' attack on the royal castle. It's finally beginning. Raya, using spatial magic, reached the palace's depths, where countless incubation tanks held bodies prepared for the elves. Raya had diligently collected tissue samples from the reincarnated elves. The man who hated trouble had become incredibly busy. In the two foremost tanks, two figures opened their eyes. The tanks shattered, the 15-year-old boy and girl emerged. Welcome back, Beto and Fana. The apostles of Sephira are gathered, Raya smiled. In ancient times, the elves entrusted the Shadow Palace, a space connecting the human world and the netherworld, to humans. Humans built the city of Clover capital to conceal it. Only the apostles of Sephira, 10 elf guides divinely chosen, could open the Shadow Palace. Humans guarded the door, elves guarded the key. This forbidden space was meant to remain hidden. This was why the demon needed the elves. After failing to possess Licht, he needed the Shadow Palace to return to the human world. Raya, sporting a handprint from Fana, returned to the palace's heights. He'd been teasing Fana. Seeing the apostles of Sephira gather, Raya initiated the palace's disintegration, revealing its true form. Drake learned from Raya that the floating dungeon Gravito rock zone had been transformed into an altar to open the Shadow Palace. The upper half of the egg-shaped palace shattered, revealing a platform with a giant tree of life magic circle. The apostles of Sephira represented the 10 circles, or points, on the tree of life. 10 elves stood on their points, inputting magic power into the Gerbet rocks below. Shadows rose from the capital's ruins, forming a distorted castle, the Shadow Palace. Yummy, Jack, the newly awakened Fugolian, and Nozzle, returning from the border, witnessed the Shadow Palace's formation. Imitation magic. Telepathy. Raya, instead of entering the Shadow Palace, contacted Drake. The Shadow Palace is open. Understood. Drake stood up. Nero, on Drake's shoulder, looked expectant. Drake placed the magic stones into the first Wizard King's statue. Upon placing the final 2 stones in its eyes, the statue glowed with magic power. Warm magic. Welcome back after 500 years, First Wizard King. Lumiere Silvamillion. The statue came alive, Lumiere moved. Thank you for releasing me, Modern Magic Knight. The Shadow Palace is open. Did his plan succeed? No, Lumiere. This youth learned the 500-year-old truth. He's prepared to fight the demon with the awakened elves. He awakened you to borrow your power. Seker. Is she like this because of the forbidden magic? Lumiere looked at Nero, filled with guilt. He blamed himself for Sekre's condition. Nero said, the demon's seal isn't fully broken, I haven't fully recovered. But it's fine, you're awake. I failed to awaken you properly. Lumiere smiled. Don't say that, my awakening is thanks to you. Modern magic knights are remarkable. Our failure threatened this era. I thank you for your efforts. Lumiere bowed to Drake. Drake said, it's to protect my friends. Please help us. Unlike your time, we can defeat the demon completely. We'll end the 500-year tragedy. Nero added, a Magalese youth obtained Licht's grimoire. He has anti-magic that counters demons. Lumiere exclaimed, such a mage exists. Magic has endless possibilities. But defeating the demon is paramount. A giant clover spear formed from light. Lumiere grabbed Drake, and they flew towards the capital. They reached the floating dungeon Gravito rock zone's platform. Raya saw Lumiere. You're awake, Prince. Raya exclaimed. Lumiere said warmly, Raya. Long time no see. Raya said awkwardly, sorry, I didn't explain the misunderstanding. Lumiere said, it's fine, I understand. Lumiere turned to Licht. Licht. Lumiere. Licht, who'd been lifeless, recognized his friend. Raya shook his head. Reunited so quickly. I'm jealous. Drake said, enough. Have you found the demon's avatar? Raya's expression turned cold. We'll defeat that fool. Drake nodded, scanning the ruins below. Found them, the two most important people in this battle. Go ahead, I'll bring them. Drake flew towards them, his fire wings spread. Asta devoured Charmy's cooking. The restorative food only replenished his stamina, not magic power. The previous battles had depleted his stamina. If the other Black Bulls hadn't arrived, he wouldn't have lasted. Most Black Bulls members were with Ghosh during the reincarnation magic activation. Ghosh had unexpectedly attacked them, but Raya contacted him, halting the fight. The Black Bulls wouldn't abandon a comrade. They went to find Ghosh, with Vanessa, Gordon, Gray, Magna, and Charmy pursuing him to the capital. It turned out that Valtos, Raids, and Sally, from the Eye of the Midnight Sun, had been sacrificed by Patry, but Raids had mastered new magic, reviving them. They joined the group to atone and seek revenge on Patry. Asta and the others defeated several elves in the capital, but they were exhausted and resting when a fiery light landed before them. Seeing no reincarnation glow, they relaxed. Asta exclaimed, Drake, you're all right. Everyone turned into elves, and Asta took the sword Drake had given him. This sword is amazing. It returned everyone to normal. Drake said, we'll talk later, the elves aren't the real enemy. We'll fight the mastermind. Asta said, without doubt. Lux Senpai said it was a sad, painful magic, they were manipulated. Drake grabbed Asta. Your anti-magic is key. You need to advance your black state and master more anti-magic. The battle starts now, you must push your limits. What? Ignoring Asta's screams, Drake lifted him. You understand. Come on. A figure appeared behind Drake, flying towards the Shadow Palace entrance. Asked, defeating the mastermind will return everyone to normal. Drake nodded. Yes, but don't underestimate the enemy. Regardless of the enemy, wouldn't retreat. The Shadow Palace entrance shrunk, the captains entered. Through a long tunnel, they reached the Shadow Palace, which resembled ancient ruins structured like the Kabbalah Tree of Life. Each circle was a room, the altar to open the Netherworld's gate was at the bottom. The apostles of Sephira were fighting the captains. Drake and the others reached the bottom, where only Raya and Patry were talking. Patry was urgent. What? That kid's consciousness isn't fully awakened. The magic stones are on him, what do we do? Raya was unconcerned. Relax. Someone will bring the stones, and they've arrived. They burst from the tunnel. Suspected Drake had betrayed the magic knights but trusted him. Raya smiled. The magic stones arrived. An elf in white appeared behind one of the apostles of Sephira, attacking He grabbed Yuno's necklace. Reacted quickly. Mana Zone. Spirit Storm. Having grown stronger, mastered human-elf hybrid and Mana Zone. After the reincarnation magic, he gained elf magic power. A massive energy beam was launched but missed. The elf vanished, reappearing beside Patry and Raya. Mr. Roni, you're here. Patry greeted him excitedly. The elf nodded. Patry said, Mr. Ron, help us retrieve the magic stones and complete the reincarnation magic. Raya shook his head, teleporting before Ron, his dark magic katana falling. He didn't strike Ron but a stone. Mr. Raya, what are you doing? Patry asked. Raya's tone was serious. You should have noticed. That wasn't Ron. The vanished Ron appeared before Yuno's magic territory revealed it was a stone that had fallen from the tunnel. The enemy could swap positions with objects. Raya's actions had caused a momentary distraction. Ron took Yuno's necklace, teleporting away, appearing on the altar. I don't know what went wrong, but my efforts have paid off. Ron smiled chillingly. His mouth was dark, as if a dark entity resided within him. Ron said, using Patry and Raya's voice, Clover's fifth leaf houses a demon. It reminds me of using the bond between four-leaf clover mages to create a grimoire of despair. What I sought then, I have now. Only in the Shadow Palace, where two worlds meet, can I summon it, the magic stone's magic. He embedded the stones in the altar. Black matter emerged, forming a cocoon. Welcome back. A distorted voice said. I'm back. Ron said, black matter merging with the cocoon. That's the mastermind, right? Yuno said, alert. The chilling, dark magic was undeniably hostile. Asta, who couldn't sense magic, felt the malice through ki. Drake said, Finally, the word spirit demon from the netherworld, Zagrid. Though incomplete, it's a body I haven't had in hundreds of years. My own body feels so good. The black cocoon shattered, revealing the ominous being within. It was a humanoid figure enveloped in dark magic, resembling a black bodysuit, revealing only its head and neck. Its disproportionate limbs, sharp tail, and dark wings indicated it was far from human. Its pointed horns, ashen skin, and black markings around its eyes and mouth, along with its sharp black teeth, declared its identity, a demon from the netherworld. Zagrid looked at Patry, coldly saying, "Elf chosen by the four-leaf clover grimoire, I'll make you experience despair, just like Lick that day." Patry's eyes widened in disbelief. "What do you mean?" Before Zagrid could answer, Raya interjected, "You incited humans to slaughter us 500 years ago. To create a five-leaf clover grimoire, but Licton the human prince stopped you." Zagrid was taken aback, sensing something was amiss. Patry was stunned, staring at Raya. Raya hadn't mentioned this before. Raya glanced at Drake. He'd sensed something was wrong, but without Drake, he would have been manipulated, he wouldn't have seen the demon's surprise. Zagrid tried to remain calm, he needed to make Patry despair and create the five-leaf clover grimoire. He continued, "I didn't expect you to know so much, but I've obtained a body." Drake interrupted, "Why do you think we'd continue as planned, knowing everything?" Zagrid was frustrated, he couldn't make Patry despair, his own composure was failing. Drake continued, "We couldn't find your avatar, but here you are." Zagrid glared at Drake, as if to devour him. Drake continued, "You thought everyone was your pawn, but didn't we use your plan to revive the elves? We have a feasible resurrection magic. Watch the elves revive, then be destroyed. Fool humans." Zagred's rage exploded. Kodadama magic. Blade storm. Numerous swords appeared, attacking Drake. Drake, using his fire wings, dodged and taunted. "What? Are you enraged? This is the result of a lowlife's schemes, it's laughable. Is this the legendary demon? You're just a clown." Drake was psychologically attacking Zagrid. Raya sighed. Drake is ruthless. But Raya smiled, seeing the manipulated demon so enraged was satisfying. Turning to Patry, Raya said, "I'm sorry for keeping it from you." Patry shook his head. "It's not Mr. Raya's fault. I fell into the demon's trap. You were right to hide it." Raya placed his hand on Patry's shoulder. "Though Licht should say this, it's what I and the others think. Thank you for your efforts, they weren't in vain." Patry broke down, crying. The blade storm stopped. Drake could breathe. "Are you done?" Raya shouted, "Can't you try harder? Don't let that troublesome kid fulfill the demon's wish." Drake turned to Zagrid. "No one will despair, there'll be no five-leaf clover grimoire." Zagrid was frantic. "You were chosen by the four-leaf clover grimoire. I'll give you the deepest pain, despair." As he was about to use Kodadama magic, two figures charged. "No one will despair." X2. Black and light green wings spread. Asta and Yuno attacked Zagrid. Zagrid opened his mouth, commanding, "Stop." They felt the air freeze. They stopped. Crush. Split. Shatter. They were struck, falling to the ground. The ground shattered like under cannon fire. Imitation magic. Dark magic. Dark cloaked Avidya slash. Fire dragon's iron fist. Raya and Drake attacked. Vacuum wall. Earth shield. Walls appeared, blocking their attacks. Zagrid raged. "Mere humans and elves. You dare mock me." Blade storm. Countless swords forced Raya and Drake back. Raya said, "What kind of magic is that?" Drake exhaled. "Word spirit magic. It recreates various magic effects through words, it can summon matter. The demon's immense magic power is difficult to counter, ordinary magic is ineffective." Raya complained, "How do we defeat him?" Drake said confidently, "That's why I brought them." Asta and Yuno burst from the ground. Asta had countered most of the attacks, so they were unharmed. They attacked before Zagrid could use another spell. Zagrid raised his arm. A large gash appeared, from Asta's demon-slaying sword. "Heal." The gash healed instantly. Zagrid, enraged, couldn't tolerate it. "You dared injure me. Humans empowered by elf magic, and you, my comrade who stole my grimoire, betray me." Zagrid sensed Yuno, despite having elf magic and power, hadn't fully achieved elf transformation to reach the sanctuary that repels demons. His attacks were limited, Asta's anti-magic was the greatest threat. He attacked Asta. Blade Storm. Countless swords flew towards Asta. They were physical, not magic, so Asta had to withstand their force. As Asta struggled to block them, Zagrid spoke. Bind. Black threads emerged, binding Asta's arms and body. Asta. Drake, Raya, and Patry knew Asta was key. They wouldn't let Zagrid attack him. Zagrid used Blade Storm again, magical swords that pierced magic. They had to defend against the swords, unable to help Asta. Iron Spear. Zagrid summoned a massive iron sand spear, aiming at Asta. As Asta was about to be impaled, a figure appeared. He took the demon-slaying sword. The rusty sword shone, becoming majestic. Anti-magic. Demon Slayer Sword. Black Divider. The spear split. Zagrid lost an arm and a wing. You are licked Sama. Patry exclaimed. The blade storm stopped. They didn't rush to save Asta. With licked, Zagrid couldn't harm Asta. Light magic. Lamp Aviar. A small sun appeared, piercing the demon. The wounded Zagrid roared, forgetting to heal himself. Drake smiled. Old friends from 500 years ago, a touching reunion. Who are they? Asta and found the newcomers familiar and asked. Raya said, that's our elf king, Licht, and your human prince. You call him the first wizard king, right? The first wizard king. Asta and were excited. Their dream of becoming wizard kings stemmed from the first wizard king's legend. Asta's eyes sparkled. It's the first wizard king. Just like the statue in Hage. But who's that girl? Her key feels familiar. Lumiere wanted to talk to the modern magic knights, but defeating the demon was paramount. It's been 500 years, demon. Zagred's wounds healed, his arm and wing regenerated. Looking at them, Zagred said, congratulations on your reunion. You had a tragic separation 500 years ago. Let me end you. The Netherworld was a feared place, demons were terrifying. Demons had ranks, the lower levels were far stronger than human high-ranking magic knights. Zagred was a high-ranking demon, far surpassing captain-level mages. But lacking his grimoire, he couldn't use his full power. His opponents were Licht, a genius elf king, and Lumiere, the first wizard king, who was equally strong. They moved simultaneously. Lumiere, with his incredible speed, approached Zagrid. A light sword shot out. Unlike Patry's, Lumiere's was more refined. Zagred's word spirit magic was activated verbally. The light sword's speed surpassed his ability to speak. He dodged. Drake's dynamic vision could barely keep up with Lumiere. Licht, without his grimoire, kept up with Lumiere, attacking. He appeared behind Zagrid, using the demon-slaying sword to absorb the dodged light sword. He released a light slash. Zagrid dodged. Lumiere attacked from another direction, striking Zagrid. Licht appeared again, striking Zagrid. Amazing. Asta and were shocked. Lumiere and Licht's combined attack left Zagrid no chance to use magic. But Zagred's wounds healed quickly, his power didn't seem to weaken. Drake said, Asta, your anti-magic is most effective. Get ready. Okay. Asta summoned anti-magic. Black anti-magic emerged from the demon-slaying sword but dissipated. Asta couldn't control it, it pulled him towards the demon. Like a black meteor, Asta severed the demon's arm. He was pulled back towards Zagrid. Zagrid, having learned his lesson, used Blade Storm. Demon Slayer Sword. Black Divider. Light Magic. Light Sword of Judgment. Imitation Magic. Dark Magic. Dark Cloaked Avidya Slash. Light Creation Magic. Bright Judgment Whip. Wind Magic. Gale White Bow. They shattered the swords. Drake stopped Asta to prevent accidental injury. Asta. Your key, we'll expose the demon's heart, his weak point. You must use your anti-magic sword to strike it. He won't give us many chances. Drake threw Asta, facing Zagrid. Let's go all out. Dragon Blood Mode, activate. Dragon scales appeared on Drake's face, his eyes became vertical pupils. The air distorted from the heat, but Drake didn't stop. Fell. A giant fire dragon spread its wings. Spirit Magic. Spirit magic was unique to mages. The mage and elemental elf merged, using elemental power. Drake and Fal had mastered it. Fal merged with Drake, his magic power surged. His body became red magic. Red dragon horns emerged, his dragon scale scarf lengthened, trailing sparks. This was his elf transformation mode, blazing fire dragon king. Finally. Mana zone. Drake's magic power surpassed Zagred's. Drake punched a hole in Zagred's chest. Retreat. Drake felt a force pushing him back, but within his magic territory, Zagred's magic was weakened. Drake's power was nearing Zagred's, his magic was ineffective. Drake grinned, revealing sharp teeth. Zagred couldn't move, an unfamiliar feeling arose. They separated. Drake examined the arm he'd torn off, burning it to ash. His spirit magic hadn't reached the sanctuary. Zagred recovered. This feeling, what is it? Zagred was stunned, his hands trembling. Drake said, demons feel this too. It's unfamiliar, right? You treat humans as pawns and toys. This is fear. Fear. Zagred heard an unfamiliar word. You say I'll feel fear. Don't be ridiculous. Zagred roared. Drake watched him, his hysteria unable to stop his trembling body. It wasn't just Dragon's intimidation, Drake's power conveyed danger. Zagred believed only weak humans felt fear, he wouldn't admit to feeling it like a human. But Drake would prove him wrong. Fire Dragon's iron fist. Drake's fist, engulfed in flames, slowly moved towards Zagred, as if to humiliate him. Zagred reacted only as the flames neared. Vacuum wall. Zagred created an air wall, blocking the flames, but it shattered upon impact. He dodged. Drake didn't pursue, others were fighting. Amazing magic. Modern magic knights are remarkable. Lumiere exclaimed, proud of his successors. Drake's magic territory's weakness was its indiscriminate effect. Everyone felt Dragon's intimidation, but except for the demon, everyone was unwavering in their beliefs. Unlike the paralyzed demon, they weren't affected. A giant light sword pierced Zagred's chest, pinning him to the wall. Fishbone light swords pinned his limbs. Zagred roared, humiliation and rage overshadowed fear. He shattered the swords on his wrists. Before he could free himself, Raya and Yuno attacked. Raya wielded a dark magic katana, Yuno, a long-wind sacred sword. Their attacks inflicted deep wounds. Raya's was a netherworld magic that could harm demons. Yuno's attack also had the same effect. Lumiere said, his magic couldn't harm the demon, so he used our magic residue to create swords. The child's talent is astounding. Licht smiled, he sensed the connection between Yuno's soul and his own. They'd used forbidden magic, their magic essence changed, granting their magic netherworld effects. Yuno solidified their magic residue into his own magic, a feat beyond ordinary mages. Away. Pierce. Shatter. Destroy. Collapse. Die. Zagred, losing control, unleashed countless word spirit spells, forcing Yuno and Raya to retreat. Licht, wielding the demon-slaying sword, stood behind them. Demon, taste the elves' 500 years of rage. Light from Patri, Raya, and Yuno landed on Licht's sword. More light fell from above, gathering on the sword. Sword ultimate magic. Demon Dweller sword, conquering Eon. Only elves, favored by magic, had the power to use ultimate magic representing the root of magic. Licht used the demon-slaying sword's ultimate magic. The demon-slaying sword allowed Licht to connect with those he had bonds with. Licht had the elves, trust and love. This attack was the combined power of all the elves in the Shadow King's palace. The attack shattered half the space, revealing the dark space beyond. The demon vanished, but Drake didn't relax. Asta, it's your turn. They saw a black heart. A mouth with black teeth appeared, uttering Zagred's hateful voice. Heal. Black magic gathered, reforming Zagred's body. Licht's attack hadn't been fatal. Asta's anti-magic was needed. Okay. Asta's demon-slaying sword transformed. It became massive, covered in black anti-magic, with black twisting patterns. Demon-slaying sword. Black divider Aster. Asta lived up to expectations, he'd mastered anti-magic. He approached Zagred, striking at the heart. He cut open Zagred's chest. Zagred's regeneration stopped, his head lowered, then he smirked. Too bad. Asta was surprised, the heart was missing. Zagred fully recovered, transforming, countless mouths appeared on his body. Trash. Inferiors. Magaless. It's over, I'll kill you all. Zagred's mouths spoke simultaneously, even using netherworld language. Asta retreated. Drake said, demons don't have normal anatomy. I'll hit his heart next time. Asta said firmly. Drake said, we'll expose his heart, seize the chance. Others attacked. Zagred's body allowed him to use more powerful word spirit magic simultaneously. Vacuum wall. Iron spear. Blade storm. Light magic. Lamp of Avier. Spirit magic. Sylph's breath. Imitation magic. Dark magic. Dark cloaked Avidya slash. Light magic. Light sword of judgment. Their magic shattered Zagred's attacks. Drake crouched. Flames swirled. Dragon Slayer secret art. Crimson blazing blade. Drake felt he could incinerate the world. It was a delusion from his surging, uncontrolled power. I need more training. Drake unleashed all his magic towards Zagred. A spiral flame storm engulfed Zagred, leaving only a heart with a mouth. Asta. Drake and Yuno shouted. I'll. Asta, a black meteor, arrived before the heart could regenerate. Finish him. A black demon shadow appeared behind Asta, reflected in Zagred's eyes. The demon-slaying sword fell, cleaving Zagred's heart. The 500-year tragedy ends here. Drake sat on a bench, holding a soda can. Feeling the fizz and familiar sweetness, he almost cried. Passers-by avoided him, who gets emotional over soda. For 10 years after his first arrival, Drake lived like a savage with Igneel. For the next 5 or 6, he was in a medieval world. He'd almost forgotten what soda tasted like. But seeing modern skyscrapers, he knew he wasn't back in fairy tales world. In Black Clover, he'd helped defeat Zagred. Licht and Vengeance used soul tree magic to undo the reincarnation magic on the elves. Raya had prepared resurrection magic, the elves revived in prepared bodies. The magic didn't work on Licht, his soul's essence had changed from using forbidden magic. But perhaps this was fine, his wife awaited him in another world. With the demon defeated and the elves revived, he could leave. Lumiere, his magic depleted, turned to stone and vanished at dawn. The losses were minimal compared to the original story. The royal castles were destroyed, but the magic knights retained public trust. They'd concealed the truth, claiming victory over the Eye of the Midnight Sun. Casualties were low. Julius revived, albeit as a child, using stored magic. Drake could finally move on to his next journey. After telling everyone he was training, he used world magic, world travel for the first time. He intended to return to Fairy Tale but ran out of magic. His arrival was due to Eclipse Gate and Spirit World magic activating world magic. Even with Fal, their combined magic wasn't enough. He couldn't describe world travel, it felt like flying through space. Each star was a world. His goal was the star representing Fairy Tale, but he ran out of magic before reaching it. He landed on the nearest star. He found this world had a robust identity system, he was stateless. The countries were similar to his previous world, he was in his homeland. This world's homeland was similar to his previous one in terms of power, culture, and international status, but history differed due to magic and psychic abilities. A newspaper reported on the Coke League, King of Night League, an international competition for magic-wielding fighters. It was more popular than the Olympics. They were called psychics, martial artists, sword masters, etc., but were essentially the same. This felt familiar. He saw a girl's picture. Unprecedented magic power. Crimson Princess of the Vermilion Kingdom. The article stated that Stella Vermilion possessed the strongest magic power ever recorded. She was called the Crimson Princess. Drake didn't know her power level, but magic power grows with training. Even with amazing talent, a girl of 11 or 12 couldn't surpass decades-trained fighters. Unless this world's magic was different. The article reminded him of a world. The cautious hero world. That was all he remembered. He hadn't watched the anime, he'd heard it was similar to another, so he'd skipped both. He only remembered the name because a friend mentioned the female lead. He sighed, knowing this was useless. In Black Clover, he knew the plot, he had direction. Here, he was stateless, with no food, shelter, or job. He pulled out some change. This wouldn't last long. He felt a headache coming. The thugs he'd encountered were a beginner's bonus, he couldn't rely on them forever. His good mood vanished, he felt despondent. Then, he saw shoes before him, old cloth shoes. He looked up. The person wore old-fashioned clothes, made of simple cotton. He saw an ordinary old man, kind but unremarkable, except for his neatly trimmed beard and bald head. But Drake felt danger. This old man was strong, far stronger than him. Young friend, I saw a star fall yesterday. Is it related to you? Discovered by a local strong person right after arriving. What do I do? I've always lived in the mountains, this is my first time in a big city. I was born in an insignificant country, I just arrived in this country. Drake, startled by the old man, jumped up. He considered how to answer. Suddenly, Drake felt a slight weight, like wearing an extra layer of clothing. He knew it wasn't an illusion. He didn't sense magic or energy fluctuations, but whatever happened was related to the old man. Forgetting about fabricating a story, Drake looked at the old man seriously. Did you do something just now? The old man seemed unsurprised. He smiled. Don't be nervous. He patted the bench. I just wanted you to sit calmly. You're a being outside of fate. I apologize for testing you without explanation. Drake sensed the old man's goodwill and sat down. What did you mean by, outside of fate? Drake was more interested in the old man's words than his identity or intentions. The old man replied, I'll tell you. People like us transcend fate and reach its outer limits, we can manipulate causality. Other countries call us desperados. For example, if you were an ordinary person, when I thought of you sitting down, causality would lead to you sitting down. Drake was astonished, he'd never heard of such power. If the old man wanted to kill someone, they'd die just by thinking it. The old man, sensing Drake's shock, explained, this ability isn't convenient. Causality or fate is inevitable. I could force you to sit, that's why your fate led to you sitting down. Secondly, this ability is ineffective against those who've also transcended fate. Drake understood, the ability wasn't as overpowered as it seemed. It was somewhat useless. Against defeatable enemies, it only skipped the process, personal strength still mattered. But Drake realized this ability was cultivated through transcending fate, those who achieved it were strong. Luckily, Drake had the same qualities, he wouldn't be suppressed, at least judging by the old man's reaction. Perhaps it was because Drake was a time traveler, his fate outside the world. The old man looked at Drake seriously. You're special. Leaving you uninformed is dangerous. Would you train with me for a while? I swear I won't harm you. You can leave anytime after understanding this world. Drake felt the old man's sincerity and couldn't refuse. He could resist fate's influence, but the old man could still make him sit. Strength determines fate. Drake wanted to understand this world. The old man, with his strength, held a high position and could solve Drake's identity issue. Drake said, I'll accept your offer. May I ask your name? The old man stroked his beard. I'm the great teacher of the Shinryu Temple, call me that. Understood, great teacher. I'm Drake. I'll trouble you. The great teacher led Drake to a luxurious car. Drake sensed powerful individuals inside, at least captain-level mages. He noticed others nearby, also strong. The great teacher explained, don't misunderstand, they're cautious because they don't know you. Drake nodded. Understandable. I admire those who protect others despite the danger. The great teacher nodded. Drake's words aligned with Shinryu Temple's principles. A man in a black suit approached. Those words convinced me you're not dangerous. He bowed to the great teacher. Have you discussed this with him? The great teacher nodded. Yes, he'll come to Shinryu Temple. Please handle his identity. The black suit said, no problem. Your willingness to communicate is a great help. Drake saw the great teacher's high status and looked forward to Shinryu Temple. Drake paled. I have a question, can I not take the car? The great teacher advised against using his abilities. Drake reluctantly got in. He saw buildings rapidly receding, they were heading towards the mountains. Temples in the mountains were normal. Drake worried about adapting to temple life. The black suit left. Drake, refreshed, examined Shinryu Temple. The vermilion gate had large door studs, a sign reading, Shinryu Temple, hung on the frame. He felt the writer's power. Stone lions stood below the steps, adding majesty. It was like a temple. After living in another world, he felt a sense of familiarity. The gate opened, the great teacher entered, Drake followed. Drake lay on the airplane like a corpse, he regretted ever transmigrating to this world. Fortunately, anticipating Drake's fear of transportation, a fellow sword master used his ability to temporarily alleviate Drake's discomfort. The effect was temporary, he'd need the sword master's help again later. Thanks to the sword master, Drake could calmly reflect on his 2 years at Shinryu Temple after his arrival in this world. 2 years ago, upon entering Shinryu Temple's gates, Drake sensed it wasn't an ordinary temple. The gates seemed to block perception, he only sensed the interior after entering. A cursory scan revealed numerous powerful auras. According to the great teacher, only the less developed disciples were detectable to Drake. The great teacher had intentionally released his aura to test Drake upon their first meeting, but after their conversation, he felt no danger. This meant countless others at Shinryu Temple, with cultivation comparable to the great teacher's, returned to simplicity, realm, were beyond Drake's perception. Living there, Drake learned what Shinryu Temple truly was. It was more accurately described as a martial arts school. Disciples weren't all monks, there were female disciples. However, regardless of gender, outsiders called Shinryu Temple alumni, warrior monks. Disciples didn't practice vegetarianism or Buddhist rituals, there were no Buddha statues. Their daily routine consisted of rigorous martial arts training and study. It wasn't exactly a school. Disciples considered Shinryu Temple their home, inheriting its spirit and strictly adhering to its precepts. For some reason, despite allowing Drake to train at Shinryu Temple, the great teacher never formally inducted him. Drake learned this world's common knowledge while training in Shinryu Temple's martial arts. This world had magic and psychic abilities, and martial arts were highly developed. Some advanced Shinryu Temple techniques surpassed magic, opening Drake's eyes. Drake's previous fighting style was brute force, this was his first experience with refined techniques. Martial arts weren't just combat skills but also techniques for controlling power. Drake was surprised to find that martial arts training not only enhanced his combat abilities but also improved his control over his body and magic. This alone made the transmigration worthwhile. His magic power grew steadily, and his martial arts skills honed under Shinryu Temple's tutelage. Drake planned to stay until he'd accumulated enough magic for his next transmigration. However, an unexpected event occurred. The great teacher found Drake and assigned him a mission. Today, Drake boarded a plane to Japan. His visa and tickets were prepared beforehand, clearly indicating the great teacher knew Drake wouldn't refuse. Drake's mission was to retrieve a defrocked monk who escaped from Shinryu Temple's extreme suffering hall. A defrocked monk was a warrior monk who violated the 5 precepts, which essentially meant that force must never be used against righteousness. Violating laws was unacceptable, even boasting about one's strength was forbidden. This meant that Shinryu Temple's warrior monks were prohibited from participating in any competitions except for Shinryu Temple's own, Fighting God Cup. Beyond martial arts, Shinryu Temple emphasized martial ethics. Any warrior monk violating the precepts was imprisoned in the extreme suffering hall for agonizing training until death. The hall was impenetrable, Drake couldn't imagine escaping from its guards. The escapee was extraordinary, one of the 4 desperados, the youngest. The 4 desperados were the 4 publicly known desperados from Drake's homeland, outsiders called them desperado-level powerhouses. Many more desperados existed, several senior monks at Shinryu Temple were undoubtedly desperado. The youngest desperado, Fu Shaori, was known as the legendary beast, Tutetsu of Shisen, a title that gained worldwide fame during the last Fighting God Cup. This individual was unexpectedly imprisoned in the extreme suffering hall and then escaped. Drake was tasked with her retrieval. Drake knew Fu Shaori well, he'd trained under her guidance. She was strong and assertive, occasionally impulsive, but highly principled and unlikely to violate the tenets of righteousness. Her escape was suspicious, even as in Desperado, escaping so easily was improbable. The great teacher instructed Drake to retrieve, not capture her, adding to the intrigue. Drake realized he was the most suitable person for this mission. Persuasion was impossible, transcending fate required unwavering will. Force was inevitable, only those with desperado-level combat strength could withstand Fu Shaori's imposing presence. Securing a Japanese visa for an established desperado like the great teacher would be problematic. No country would allow another nation's strategic weapon to enter freely, especially under the current circumstances. Drake, a young man, wouldn't face such difficulties. Over the past 2 years, Drake had gained a thorough understanding of this world. 3 major forces existed. The Great Nation Alliance, centered on 3 major powers, the International Magic Knights Alliance, a coalition of smaller nations focused on managing sword masters, and the International Terrorist Organization, Rebellion. Drake's homeland and Japan belonged to the Alliance and the League, respectively, their relationship complex. Fu Shaori's trip to Japan could be seen as a way to evade Shinryu Temple's pursuit. However, the great teacher's information indicated that Stella wasn't seeking refuge, she was targeting someone else. This individual, who had gone to Japan, was the reason for Fu Shaori's journey. World's strongest swordsman. Most vicious criminal. One-man army. The pinnacle of swordsmanship. These were the titles bestowed upon Edelweiss. Drake rubbed his temples. This powerhouse, even admired by the great teacher, was also in Japan. This mission was daunting. Why was Fu Shaori seeking Edelweiss? She wouldn't be so shallow as to challenge Edelweiss for the title of world's strongest. With limited information, Drake could only investigate further upon reaching Japan. Watching the Japanese coastline grow larger outside the window, Drake asked the man in the black suit beside him, "So, what's my identity in Japan?" The black-suited man, a government official accompanying Drake, replied, "You'll be an exchange student at Japan's Hagen Academy. Don't reveal your purpose." Drake understood. Fu Shaori's escape from Shinryu Temple could cause international incidents, especially given the strained relations between the two countries. An exchange student, did the great teacher or you arrange this? Drake asked. The black-suited man replied, the great teacher wrote to Mr. Tarajiro Nango in Japan, he arranged the exchange student status. Drake nodded. He knew Tarajiro Nango, the only Japanese person to win the Fighting God Cup and earn the title of Fighting God. The Fighting God Cup was held by Shinryu Temple. Drake hadn't expected Tarajiro to arrange his enrollment at Hagen Academy. After the World War, Japan reluctantly joined the International Magic Knights Alliance, surrendering many rights to preserve the nation. Most importantly, they relinquished control over the education and management of Magic Knights. Sword masters were rare, but each one was a force to be reckoned with. In Japan, to become a Magic Knight, sword masters had to graduate from one of the 7 Magic Knight academies under the Alliance. The Japanese government had no control over Magic Knight education. They couldn't revoke the Magic Knight status of even criminal sword masters. Japan's 7 Magic Knight academies were named after the Big Dipper stars. Drake was to attend Hagen Academy. Drake knew that these 7 academies held an annual 7-star sword festival. With students competing, the winner earned the title of 7-star sword king. Hagen Academy was once a top academy, winning many 7-star sword king trophies. However, its performance had declined in recent years. Drake wasn't in Japan to study, the academy's reputation didn't matter. Drake didn't understand how he could retrieve Fu Shaori while being an exchange student, limiting his freedom. The black-suited man explained, the 7-star sword festival is approaching. Information suggests something will happen. Edelweiss is in Japan because of this, the immortal might also appear at the festival. Drake rubbed his forehead. So I have to participate in the 7-star sword festival. The black-suited man said, Hagen Academy has a new principal, they're selecting participants for the 7-star sword festival. You'll have no problem. He recalled their conversation with Shinryu Temple. Knowing Shinryu Temple's precepts, warrior monks couldn't participate in competitions other than the Fighting God Cup. They'd ask the great teacher if the plan needed changing. The great teacher said Drake wasn't a Shinryu Temple warrior monk and didn't have to follow the precepts. Drake had mastered Shinryu Temple's techniques, only the title was missing. The great teacher hadn't inducted Drake to avoid the precepts becoming a constraint. The black-suited man almost suspected Drake's background. Drake had noticed this preferential treatment, it was why he couldn't refuse the mission. After training at Shinryu Temple, Drake didn't want to participate in a student competition. But he had to complete the mission. The plane landed, Drake felt relieved to be on solid ground, even though the sword master's ability temporarily suppressed his deathly fear. After retrieving his luggage, Drake and the black-suited man couldn't leave. A crowd of reporters with cameras awaited them. Drake said, they're not here for me, right? Is another VIP arriving in Japan today? The black-suited man checked his phone. The second princess of the Familon Kingdom will arrive today and attend Hagen Academy. Familon was a small European country. It was barely known a few years ago. Its recent fame was due to its second princess, Stella Vermilion. Drake now understood this world's magic. Magic was linked to a sword master's destiny. the amount of innate magic power represented the weight of their destiny. Innate magic power was unchangeable unless one transcended fate and became a desperado. Only desperados could increase their magic power through training. Stella Vermilion possessed the highest level of human magic power, rated A-class, but several times stronger than a typical A-class sword master. She stood at the top of the sword master pyramid, born a powerhouse. This was a sword master-centric world. Stella's talent made her country famous. Drake remembered seeing her in the newspaper. They'd arrive in Japan on the same day. Drake's arrival wasn't public knowledge. The reporters weren't interested in him. They left the airport. The black-suited man contacted someone and led Drake to a long black car. Drake saw a woman in a suit leaning against the car. Shinguji Kurono, a little-known name. Her previous name, Takizawa, might be more familiar. Drake knew the famous powerhouses, mostly from major competitions, the Fighting God Cup, Shinryu Temple, and the Coke League, International Magic Knights Alliance. The Coke League, with better management, was globally renowned. A-class league participants were world-class sword masters. Takizawa was formerly ranked third in the A-class league, known as World Clock. After marriage and childbirth, she became Shinguji Kurono, retiring and disappearing from public view. This former world-ranked third had unexpectedly taken over Hagen Academy. Shinguji Kurono saw them and looked at Drake. "You're the exchange student from Shinryu Temple. Amazing. That place has exchange students." She was surprised. Shinryu Temple was mysterious, little was known besides the Fighting God Cup. But they had exchange students. With Tarajiro's involvement, she wouldn't refuse a talented student. A student from Shinryu Temple, how strong. With the Crimson Princess, this year's 7-Star Sword Festival would be interesting. Shinguji Kurono smiled. Shinguji Kurono, former world-ranked third, current Hagen Academy principal, and an unexpected troublemaker. After discussing some matters with Shinguji Kurono, the black-suited man left. Drake got into the car. Kurono sat opposite him, opening the car's refrigerator. "Care for a drink?" Drake waved his hand. "No, thank you. Help yourself." Kurono closed the refrigerator and leaned back. "I'm not curious about your purpose in Japan. A Shinryu Temple student wouldn't do anything excessive." Shinryu Temple's reputation was excellent. Kurono trusted Drake wouldn't tarnish its centuries-old honor. She smiled. "Your arrival is timely. I just took over Hagen Academy. I need good results at the 7-Star Sword Festival. In exchange for not interfering with your actions at the academy, you'll need to contribute." Drake recalled the information he'd seen on the plane. Kurono had implemented sweeping reforms at Hagen Academy after taking over. The academy's decline was due to the previous principal's bureaucratic practices. Teachers and students were distracted. Kurono dismissed many unqualified teachers and decided to use practical tests instead of ability rankings to select participants for the 7-Star Sword Festival. Japan valued tradition. Kurono's reforms faced criticism. She was under pressure. She was serious about the 7-Star Sword Festival. Drake said, "I plan to participate. I'll do my best." Kurono asked mysteriously, "Doesn't Shinryu Temple forbid warrior monks from external competitions?" Drake replied, "There's nothing to hide. I trained at Shinryu Temple, but I'm not a warrior monk." Kurono was even more puzzled. She knew that country valued tradition and had strong internal divisions. Drake's situation was unheard of. She was more interested in this mysterious youth. As they spoke, a commotion arose outside. Reporters surrounded the entrance. Kurono smiled. "The princess has arrived." Drake's enrollment was unexpected. Kurono's confidence in the 7-Star Sword Festival stemmed from the Crimson Princess and several excellent students. The Crimson Princess, with the strongest human magic power, was considered the strongest student knight. Kurono didn't tell anyone that she favored a Hagen Academy repeater more than the Crimson Princess. She didn't think the Crimson Princess could defeat this seemingly weakest student. And there was Drake, an unexpected variable. Drake said, "Shouldn't you help the princess? She looks troubled." Drake saw Stella Vermilion surrounded by reporters. Flashbulbs flashed constantly. He suspected that if she weren't a princess, she would have lost her temper. Fortunately, her guards and Kurono's people arrived. She escaped the reporters and entered the car. Drake observed her closely. Stella had magenta hair in twintails and a beautiful face. Her elegant knight's uniform highlighted her figure. Was she really 15? She had a formidable presence. He hadn't noticed this potential 2 years ago from her photo. Drake's gaze wasn't captivated by her appearance but by her power. He sensed a burning aura, confirming her reputation. What surprised him was that her power resembled his. Stella's ability was fire manipulation, a natural ability. But Drake had encountered many with similar abilities, none were like her. Drake was a dragon slayer, his true power was dragon force. If Stella's power felt similar to his, it couldn't be simple fire. Many sword masters didn't understand their abilities initially, they only truly understood them after mastering them. Stella's power was so strong that her surface-level abilities made her the strongest. She hadn't discovered her true abilities. Drake suspected her ability wasn't fire manipulation but related to dragons, possibly a concept interference ability. Stella sensed a familiarity. She asked, "Who is he?" Kurono, smoking a cigarette, smiled. "The princess is concerned about a stranger." Bold. Kurono, enjoying Stella's blushing, said, "He's this year's exchange student, he'll attend Hagen Academy with you. He just arrived, get along." Drake extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Your Highness. I'm Drake, from Shinryu Temple. Pleased to meet you." Stella shook his hand. "We're classmates now. Call me Stella. Pleased to meet you, Drake." She then realized what he'd said. Drake-san is from Shinryu Temple. Drake was surprised. "Yes, I trained at Shinryu Temple for 2 years under the great teacher's guidance." Stella became enthusiastic. "The great teacher. The current fighting god. Why are you an exchange student in Japan? What's Shinryu Temple like?" Her questions overwhelmed Drake. Kurono intervened. "You can get to know each other later. Let's discuss enrollment." Drake didn't thank her, he saw her strange smile. She was up to something. The car started. "Ah. Principal, Drake-san is dead." Stella shrieked. Drake struggled. "I'm just helpless against transportation." Seeing 405 on the doorplate, Drake finally found his exchange student dormitory. "Fool that awful woman," Drake muttered. He was referring to Shinguji Kurono. He'd expected her antics, but he hadn't anticipated her assigning him to share a room with Stella. Hagen Academy's dormitories were double occupancy. While there were cases of male and female students sharing rooms, Drake was certain Kurono hadn't done this due to a shortage of rooms. After Drake's strong objections, Kurono found a room with a vacant bed. The roommate was a repeater living alone. Before transmigrating, Drake had fantasized about living with a beautiful girl, but he wasn't interested now. Stella was a genuine princess. Friendship was fine, but cohabitation would cause major trouble. Drake wasn't afraid of trouble, but he wasn't looking for it, especially trouble orchestrated by a troublemaker. Living with a girl he'd just met made him uncomfortable. Surprisingly, Stella's reaction was unexpected. She initially objected, but when Drake refused, she became angry, a testament to the unpredictable nature of girls' minds. Looking at the nameplate, Drake muttered, "Kurogane, a renowned surname." Kurogane was the most prominent sword master family in Japan. One of Japan's two heroes, Samurai Ryoma, was Kurogane Ryoma. After Japan joined the International Magic Knights Alliance, the heads of the Kurogane family served as the alliance's Japanese branch heads. The current head, Kurogane Itsuke, was known as Ironblood. Drake unlocked the door and entered. The room was empty, but a bed was vacant. The room was tidy, they wouldn't clash over living habits. Drake took out his student handbook, a small device containing detailed information about Hagen Academy, including a search function, communication, and maps. He searched for Kurogane and repeater to learn about his roommate. He suspected Kurono's motives for assigning him to this room. The search results showed a somewhat delicate face. Kurogane Ikki, Sword Master rank F. Drake knew about the Alliance's Sword Master rankings. The Alliance measured attack, defense, magic power, magic control, luck, and physical ability, providing a comprehensive ranking. Most Magic Knights were in the top 5 ranks AE. F rank meant extremely weak abilities, making them unsuitable for Sword Master work. F rank Sword Masters were slightly stronger than ordinary people. No wonder Kurogane Ikki was a repeater. But his title. Worst one, the Failing Knight. Drake's roommate was the protagonist. Drake knew this because it was the world of Cautious Hero, and the protagonist was obvious. He kept encountering similar protagonists. Ikki, like Asta, lacked typical talent. Drake didn't know about Ikki's plot armor. Drake put away the handbook, settled his luggage, and changed into his Hagen Academy uniform. As he was looking in the mirror, the door opened, and a young man entered. It was Ikki Kurogane, exactly as in the photo. He wore athletic clothes, a towel around his neck, and sweat on his forehead, fresh from morning training. He was surprised to see someone in the room. If he hadn't seen Drake's uniform, he might have attacked. Drake extended his hand. Hello, I'm Drake. I'm the exchange student moving in today. Ikki shook his hand. Nice to meet you, roommate. I'm Kurogane Ikki. Pleased to meet you. Drake looked at Ikki seriously. F rank. Hagen Academy's weakest. If so, how could Hagen Academy fail in the 7-Star Sword Festival? Drake sensed a honed sharpness in Ikki, similar to Licht and Yami in Black Clover. Ki represented a person's essence. It didn't guarantee strength, but Ikki was a man striving for strength. He'd expected Ikki to grow later, like Asta. But he was already strong. The information Drake found was inaccurate. Drake realized this was why Hagen Academy had declined. Even Ikki, a strong person, was mocked for his low ranking. Perhaps noticing Drake's strange expression, Ikki asked, is something wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Drake released Ikki's hand. Nothing. My roommate is unexpected. Ikki scratched his head. You know about the failing knight. Drake said sarcastically, it lowered my expectations of this academy. Ikki looked surprised. Drake said, calling someone like you the weakest, failing to see your strength, those people are narrow-minded. Ikki said, embarrassed, you flatter me. I'm an F-rank repeater who's barely graduating. Drake said, the Alliance's ranking suits most cases, but true strength matters. Ikki, you're not far behind Stella, an A- rank. Drake genuinely believed this. Ikki was stronger than Stella, who hadn't even discovered her true abilities. Ikki felt touched. It was the second time someone had recognized him since his encounter with Kurogane Ryoma as a child. Having spent time with Asta, Drake understood Ikki's feelings. The principal wants me to test my basic abilities. I'm unfamiliar with the academy, could you show me around? Of course. Ikki replied readily. Being an academy under the International Magic Knights Alliance, Hagen Academy was surprisingly large. It had several dome-shaped arenas, each with a 100-meter diameter battle area and spacious tiered seating. Ikki Kurogane, having quickly prepared himself, brought Drake to one of the arenas. They learned more about each other along the way. Drake-san is from Shinryu Temple. I've always wanted to visit, but I heard outsiders aren't allowed, Ikki exclaimed. Drake said, people misunderstand Shinryu Temple's mystery. It's like an academy, everyone strives for martial arts excellence. Amazing. Ikki said longingly. He sensed Shinryu Temple's purity from Drake, unlike Hagen Academy. They reached the arena and saw Kurono smoking a cigarette. You're slow. Kurono complained, then saw Ikki. You've met. Satisfied with my arrangements? Drake nodded. Ikki-san is amazing, it was pleasant. Kurono smiled. Good. But the test is important, don't tell me you only made friends and forgot to prepare. Drake shrugged. Preparation wouldn't show my true abilities. Confident, Kurono said. Let's begin. Kurono took Drake to the arena, where several machines were set up. Drake noticed many spectators, including Stella. Kurono's doing, no doubt. Kurono, unfazed by Drake's suspicious gaze, said, 6 tests. First, attack the target with all your strength. Drake stood in the arena, arms outstretched, muttering, roar. Fafnir. Light appeared on his left arm. Dragon scale plates covered his hand and forearm. It was a ferocious armguard. His fingers were like claws. His forearm and elbow had sharp spikes. The black armguard's patterns resembled flowing magma. He continued, and, awaken. Siegfried. Armor appeared on his right arm. This silver armguard was square and ornate, like a noble knight's. Kurono smiled. His inherent spiritual armor. Fafnir and Siegfried. Interesting. What kind of conflicting soul creates this armor? Inherent spiritual armor was unique to this world. Sword masters transformed their souls into physical forms, manifesting them through magic. Legendary swords, spears, and blades were spiritual armor. The armor's appearance reflected the owner's soul. Like wands for mages, sword masters needed their spiritual armor to unleash their full power. Spiritual armor could be in a fantasy state, causing no real damage, only reducing stamina. The International Magic Knights Alliance forbade using real spiritual armor unless licensed. Even fantasy spiritual armor was only allowed in arenas. Drake's armor was a two-piece set, Fafnir left and Siegfried right. The names came from the Nibelungenlied. Fafnir was a giant who transformed into a dragon to protect the Rheingold ring. Siegfried slew Fafnir, gaining immortality and the title of Dragon Knight. Drake's dragon power and desire to slay a black dragon created this armor. Drake attacked the target. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. His left armguard opened slightly, flames erupted as if a dragon roared within. The flames engulfed the target. Kurono looked at the screen, the numbers soared, surpassing A rank instantly. This test showed attack power, magic power, and control. Drake was clearly an A- rank sword master. The attack only brightened the black armguard's patterns. Drake was calm. Kurono said, "Next test. Defense, if you don't need a rest." Drake nodded and went to the next machine. Kurono told the operator, "No wasting time, start at B rank." Magic power was important because it represented destiny. High magic sword masters could defend against attacks with their surface magic. Stella didn't need to worry about attacks below D rank. This is why high-level sword masters could influence wars. Modern weapons were like toys to them. Even nuclear weapons might not work against them. Drake was the same. Starting at the lowest level was a waste of time. The operator hesitated but pressed the button. An energy beam struck Drake's chest. He didn't flinch. "Increase output," Kurono ordered. Drake felt the increase but remained unfazed. A rank. The operator reported. Kurono ignored him. "Increase it, let's see his limit." The energy increased. Sparks flew from Drake's body, his overflowing magic manifesting as flames. The machine smoked. "Principal, we've reached the limit." Kurono scolded, "What nonsense. He's fine." The machine reached its limit, continuing is dangerous. Kurono sighed. "Stop it. The newest machine reaches its limit before him." She turned to the others. "Prepare for the next test. Magic power test, begin." Kurono saw the almost broken meter. It was expected. Magic control test. Drake used magic to shape clay into a lifelike dragon. Luck test. Drake pressed the button 10 times. The machine generated 10 random marks. Matching marks determined the result. Physical ability test. Drake completed all the tests without magic. Kurono looked at Drake's results. A monster. Even she, a former world ranked third, rarely saw such data. The 6-dimensional chart was astonishing. Name: Drake. Ability: Concept Interference, Fire Dragon. Sword Master rank: A. Inherent Spiritual Armor, Fafnir and Siegfried. Attack: A. Defense: A. Magic Power: A. Magic Control: A. Luck: B. Physical Ability: A. The audience couldn't see the results, but they witnessed Drake's strength. No one could confidently withstand Drake's attack or break his defense. Drake sensed fear from the audience, but those with unwavering fighting spirit stood out. Stella was the most prominent. Drake felt her intense fighting spirit. If not for her composure, she might have challenged him. Others showed no weakness. Hagen Academy seemed to have more female than male students with strong ki. Kurono put down the results. Congratulations, Drake-san. You're an A-rank sword master, and among the best I know. Drake sensed something was amiss. Kurono continued, since you're here, how about a mock battle? Before Drake could react, several fighting spirits arose from the audience. Kurono wanted Drake to be a catalyst to invigorate the students. She wanted Drake to choose an opponent. Choosing a specific person would achieve her goal. Drake said, a mock battle, fine. I choose the opponent. Kurono nodded. Yes. Stella was excited. Drake would likely choose her. She was the first classmate he'd met, and they were the only A-rank student knights. A small girl with glasses started planning her headline, Clash of A-rank freshmen. Who is the strongest? That'll do. Drake pointed to someone in the audience. I choose him. Everyone was shocked. Drake hadn't chosen the strongest, Stella, but someone they all knew, the weakest, F-rank Kurogane Ikki. Murmurs arose, they didn't understand Drake's choice. Was he unaware of the difference in ranks? Icky hadn't expected Drake to choose him, he thought Drake was humiliating him. He'd been mocked and attacked by classmates at Hagen Academy. He didn't know if it was due to prejudice or orders from the Kurragane family. But Icky saw Drake's serious gaze. He understood Drake's sincerity, this choice was based on genuine recognition of his strength. Kurono had bet that Drake could see Icky's potential, she'd won. Kurono said to Icky, our exchange student chose you. Will you accept? Of course. Fighting a sword master like Drake-san is a rare opportunity. Icky replied decisively. The audience was even more confused. Drake might have chosen poorly, but didn't Icky understand his limitations? Stella noticed the commotion and asked the girl beside her, Kagami, is that man famous at Hagen Academy? Kusakabe Kagami, a freshman sharing a dorm with Stella, considered herself non-combat and dreamed of becoming a journalist. She knew all the academy gossip. She was shocked. Kurragane Icky, he's a senior who repeated a year due to poor grades. A repeater? Stella asked. Does Hagen Academy have repeaters? Kagami nodded. Kurragane Senpai is famous for being an F-rank sword master. His magic power is less than 1/10 the average, his ability is basic body enhancement, he's called the Failing Knight. Stella looked at Icky and then at Drake. She couldn't understand them. Sword masters followed the knightly way, she wouldn't choose a much weaker opponent or accept a pointless, losing battle. She asked them directly, wait. Drake, your opponent is an F-rank sword master. Icky-san, why are you accepting? You can refuse, I'll fight him. Everyone focused on them, awaiting their answers. Drake and Icky exchanged glances. I know Icky-san's situation. Before Stella could ask further, Drake gave a shocking answer. Because Icky-san is the strongest here, besides the principal, even stronger than Stella-san. The arena erupted in disbelief. Who? Icky. The strongest. Why? There were B and C rank sword masters present, including student council members. How could Icky be the strongest? Drake remained firm. Stella, sensing his conviction, looked at Icky. Icky said modestly, since Drake-san said so, I must respond. I'm looking forward to the mock battle. They were crazy. Kurono silenced the audience. Since both sides agree and understand the rules, let the battle begin. In the center of the arena, Drake and Kurragane Icky faced each other. I sensed Icky-san's honed, restrained sharpness earlier. I'm glad to have this chance to spar, Drake smiled. Icky nodded. I don't know what ki is, but I appreciate your acknowledgement. I'll give it my all. Excellent. Drake assumed a stance. Appear. In iron. Icky made a gripping motion. A black katana, like crow feathers, appeared. This spiritual armor reflected its owner's nature, a rare and exceptional blade. They moved, clashing instantly. Icky used a textbook downward strike towards Drake. Though a basic move, Icky's execution was impressive, it revealed his skill. Drake didn't use Dragon Slayer magic, he'd fight Icky with martial arts. Drake stepped back, avoiding the blade. Icky rotated his wrist, the blade changed direction, continuing its attack. Drake raised his arm, his palm meeting the blade. His fingers struck the blade, producing a crisp sound. Icky felt a powerful vibration, his hand felt numb. He retreated, stopping the blade's tremor. That's inch strength. Drake-san's martial arts are amazing. Icky said excitedly. He was eager to learn new martial arts, especially from Shinryu Temple. Drake raised his palm. Shinryu Temple's technique, Suzaku type. Tenku. Impressive, Icky-san, you recovered quickly. Shinryu Temple's martial arts were vast, Drake hadn't learned them all. He focused on practical techniques. Suzaku type. Tenku was one, used against opponents with weapons. It used Genbu type, Taisen to cause high-frequency vibrations in the weapon, making it drop. Icky knew similar techniques, he learned from Drake's Suzaku type, Tenku. He attacked again, Drake met his blade with a hand knife. Sparks flew as Icky's blade grazed Fafnir's scales. Icky felt like he was attacking a wall, his attacks couldn't penetrate. But Icky didn't give up, he sensed Drake's martial arts and something deeper. Icky was skilled in various martial arts styles. Fist techniques differed from swordsmanship in attack range and power but were more flexible. Humans have two arms, this allows smoother transitions between offense and defense. Both possessed incredible martial arts skills. Their exchange was spectacular, but not everyone appreciated it. In the audience, Hagen Academy's Student Council President, Tuka Tudo, watched intently. As the fighting god's disciple, she was perhaps the most perceptive. Without abilities, she couldn't replicate their performance. Are they playing games? Boring. Can't they fight seriously? This isn't what we want to see. Tudo felt conflicted. She was angry that their skills were unappreciated but saddened that few understood their strength. Did they only want flashy ability clashes and not appreciate their martial arts? But Drake and Ikki were fully immersed in the battle. Ikki unleashed a flurry of strikes within iron, creating a dazzling net of slashes. Beautiful! Drake exclaimed. Few at Shinryu Temple could execute so many strikes so quickly and steadily. Their styles differed. Shinryu Temple emphasized technique and intent, not speed or power. But martial arts converged. Ikki's strength was evident. Drake, energized, took a deep breath and moved. Ding! Clang! Dang! Drake's palm changed shapes, blocking Ikki's strikes. Suddenly, Ikki changed from slashes to thrusts. Drake tried to deflect the blade, but the strike was powerful. It continued towards him. First secret sword, heavy strike. Ikki hadn't formally learned swordsmanship. He'd learned it. He could instantly understand most sword techniques, mastering their principles, techniques, and countermeasures. He'd created 7 secret swords, combining his abilities and learned techniques. This was the first, focusing all power on one point, the strongest technique against objects. He'd hidden it among ordinary attacks, surprising Drake. Ikki was a swordsman seeking honorable victory, but not a samurai. He didn't mind using strategy. The blade struck Drake, but it didn't pierce his skin, the ground cracked instead. Ikki was surprised. Drake's defense was A rank, due to magic. But he sensed no external magic. It was due to unknown martial arts. Drake said, Shinryu Temple's technique. Genbu type. Taisen. This technique, named after Sacred Mountain, embodied immobility. Drake connected with the earth. Breaking his defense required immense power. Ikki retreated. They charged again. The battle had just begun. With both combatants unleashing their full potential, the battle intensified, becoming much more dynamic. Drake blocked in Iron's blade with Siegfried, his left arm, clad in Fafnir, striking downward with a hand knife. Ikki didn't block but retreated. He underestimated the attack's power. Although the hand knife missed, the ground shattered from the force. He had to retreat further to avoid the aftershock. An air cannon from a hand strike. Ikki marveled at Drake's strength and precision in focusing his power. Drake crouched, his arms drawn back like a bird's wings. Suzaku type. Tenku. Ikki had heard of Student Council President Tuka Tudu's incredible speed using her lightning manipulation ability. He'd never seen such speed, but now he witnessed it in Drake's Suzaku form, a footwork technique for rapid, direct approach. Drake was too fast. Ikki couldn't react before the attack. Drake's heavy fist struck. Ikki met it with his blade. 7 secret swords. Third sword. Madoka, circle. Drake's fist collided with the blade. A powerful force surged back. Drake understood. Ikki had transferred the force from Drake's fist through the blade to his muscles, then returned it using a circular motion, a complete deflection technique. The force Drake felt was from his own punch. But Drake didn't resist. He twisted his body, and his right fist struck. Ikki was surprised. Drake also used a complete deflection technique. Ikki instinctively knew he couldn't use circle again. He retreated. Drake's fist hit the ground with a boom. Ikki stared at the impact. It wasn't a normal impact. It resembled a drill hole. Drake smiled. Ikki-san, don't underestimate my country's 4,000-year-old martial arts. This complete deflection technique is called Tai Chi. It's a refined martial art passed down for millennia. You're perceptive. If you'd received that blow, your muscles would have been torn. Ikki felt the pressure, Drake's strength and the weight of a millennia-old civilization. He hadn't fully replicated Drake's martial arts. He couldn't replicate millennia of wisdom and accumulation. Drake understood Ikki's attempts to understand his martial arts. With his imitations, he couldn't match Drake. Ikki realized this. He was fighting instinctively, using imitation techniques. But he couldn't afford this against Drake. He changed his grip. Drake sensed a sharper key. Ikki, jogging towards Drake, suddenly became 2. 7 secret swords. Fourth sword, Shinkuro, Mirage Wolf. Using footwork to create illusions, effective against others, but not Drake, who relied on ki. Ikki's real body's ki was too obvious. Drake went straight for Ikki's real body, striking with a piercing hand strike. Ikki, prepared for Mirage Wolf's failure, calmly dodged and struck. The angle was precise, targeting Drake's weakest point. Drake bent his arm, his elbow deflected the blade. Fist techniques allowed any body part to be a shield or weapon. Ikki, emotionless, swung an iron from another angle. Drake met the blade. Their exchange accelerated, few could follow. Even those who didn't understand martial arts sensed the intense pressure. The murmurs ceased, everyone focused on the battle. Stella, initially angry at their answers, understood why Drake chose Ikki. Their martial arts surpassed hers, she'd misunderstood Drake and underestimated Ikki. They were unaware of Stella's feelings, they were fully engaged. 7 Secret Swords. Sixth Sword. Dokuga no Tachi, Poisonous Moth Long Sword. Drake blocked Ikki's strike, but his arm stung. This is. Drake sensed a technique similar to Cicada's Cry, vibration-based attacks. Ikki seized the opportunity, unleashing his strongest strike. First Secret Sword. Heavy Strike. Drake retreated for the first time, recovering from Poison Moth Blade. Ikki, instead of rejoicing, looked grim. Drake-san, you said you'd fight with all your strength. If you'd used magic, that strike wouldn't have worked. Your ability is fire, why haven't you used it? Drake sensed Ikki's displeasure. I apologize, I was arrogant for using only martial arts. To compensate, I'll use my full strength. Drake realized his mistake, his actions were insulting to Ikki's resolve. He'd fight seriously. He activated Dragon Blood mode, flames enveloped him. Ikki felt the scorching air, this Drake was a worthy opponent. 7 Secret Swords. Seventh Sword. Raiko, Lightning. This strike, as fast as Suzaku, Heavenly Drive, struck Drake. But the blade didn't hit, the flames blocked it. Drake unleashed a wave of flames, sending Ikki flying. The intense heat turned the arena into a furnace, the audience gasped. This was why Ikki was called the Failing Knight. Low magic users were powerless against high magic users, even with full effort, they couldn't break their defenses. Ikki knew this, he'd created a technique to overcome this disparity. Ito Shura. One Blade Shura. Ikki roared, his body glowed with magic power. Ito Shura. One Blade Shura. Drake was genuinely surprised to see magic power emanating from Ikki Kurigane. An F-rank magic power level meant it was so weak it could only circulate internally, unable to affect the external world. Ikki shouldn't have this visible magic overflow. In this world, magic was linked to destiny, unless one became a desperado, magic power couldn't increase. The only explanation was that Ikki had used his full power. Humans never truly use their full strength, it exceeds their limits. Using full power could tear muscles, sever tendons, or break bones. Magic is the same, unrestrained use causes immense damage. The body has limitations to protect itself. Trained individuals can temporarily overcome some limitations, releasing potential for greater strength. But the basic survival instinct prevents complete release. Someone who breaks this instinct can unleash several times their normal strength. Ikki had done this, breaking his survival instinct to unleash several times his normal power for 1 minute, his ultimate technique, One Sword Asura. Drake knew a similar ability, the ultimate technique of 4 Symbols Fist. It allowed one to surpass physical limitations, but it required exceptional talent and rigorous training. Only 3 people at Shinryu Temple mastered it, the current fighting god, the Shinryu Temple headmaster, and Fu Shaori. Drake had also mastered it, perhaps due to his experiences in other worlds. He'd mastered it just before this trip. Unlike the refined Kirin technique, Ikki's One Sword Asura was brutal, disregarding bodily harm. This technique required regeneration technology, otherwise, the user would be crippled. Ikki vanished, Drake smiled and vanished as well. They reappeared in the arena's center, in Iron and Siegfried clashed, shattering the ground. They reappeared in another corner. What happened? Stella asked, bewildered. A young girl in a kimono appeared beside her. Pure speed. Their speed exceeded our vision, causing that instantaneous movement. Interesting. This year's 7-Star Sword Festival won't be boring. Kurono noticed her. You came. The girl opened her fan. It doesn't matter, let's watch. This level of combat among student knights is rare. After another clash, they separated. Ikki felt the difference in talent. Drake kept up with his one-sword Asura speed. This didn't discourage him, he was invigorated. Drake exhaled, dragon scales appeared on his face. Fire dragons blazing inferno. Drake unleashed flames engulfing a quarter of the arena, the audience instinctively dodged. But the flames didn't reach them. Even with one sword Asura, Ikki couldn't withstand the flames, he dodged. Drake's eyes moved, Ikki appeared there. Drake stepped forward, shattering the ground, his flaming arms sweeping towards Ikki. Ikki vanished, a shadow fell from above. 7 secret swords. 4th sword, Shinkaro, Mirage Wolf. Mirage Wolf's illusion wasn't fixed, Ikki created it close to his body, deceiving even Drake. He launched a surprise attack. In iron pierced Drake's flames, Ikki prepared to change his strike when Drake's palm met his blade. Siegfried pressed down in iron, and Fafnir emitted intense flames. Ikki felt his hair curling from the heat, dodging was impossible. Second secret sword. Second sword, Rekko, rend armor. Drake felt powerful force on in iron, overcoming Siegfried's pressure and striking Drake. The blade didn't break Drake's defense, dragon blood mode made him invincible. But the force sent Drake flying, interrupting his attack. Drake hadn't expected Ikki to use his technique with his blade, he'd been caught off guard. Looking at the panting Ikki, Drake said, "How much longer can you maintain this?" One sword Asura was time limited, the strain and exhaustion wouldn't disappear. Ikki would be weakened afterward. Ikki estimated he had less than 10 seconds left. Enough. Ikki prepared his final strike. Is that so? Drake knew this would be Ikki's all-out attack, he'd respond with his full power. 7 secret swords. 7th sword, Raiko, lightning. Fire dragon's iron fist. The flames propelled Drake towards Ikki. But Drake missed, Ikki's attack had shifted slightly, avoiding Drake's strike. Ikki hadn't aimed for a decisive blow, it was a feint. Even Drake would have an opening after a full power punch. Ikki aimed to exploit this. The 7th secret sword brought him behind Drake. With 5 seconds left of one blade Shura, he prepared his attack. First secret sword, heavy strike. Ikki bet everything on his strongest technique. He'd win, no matter the cost, the path of Asura. But he faced an unreasonably powerful dragon. Drake's vertical pupils narrowed, Ikki saw a giant beast before him. Time seemed to stop, Ikki's blade continued its thrust, but Drake's counter-attacking flames surged. The 5 seconds ended, the flames dissipated. In iron's tip rested on Drake's shoulder, they stood facing each other. "You're strong, Ikki-san," Drake said, watching the unconscious Ikki fall. Yaksha princess. Drake watched as Ikki Kuragain was carried away, his condition required immediate treatment in a regeneration pod. Drake had used only the fantasy form of his spiritual armor, he hadn't inflicted real damage. Ikki's injuries were solely from one sword Asura's side effects. Though Ikki lost, Drake didn't underestimate him. He made Drake's time at Hagen Academy interesting. Suddenly, Drake's body stiffened, a primal response to danger. He turned to see a small woman in a kimono with a large bow in her hair. She smiled mischievously, wielding a folding fan. She was barely 1.4 meters tall, a child. But she was a legitimate cute, a contemporary of Kurono, and the current world's third-ranked Coke League fighter, Nene Saikyo, known as Yaksha Princess. Before leaving, Drake researched Japan's top fighters. Nene was one of them. Her destructive ultimate technique was banned. The last one with this treatment was Kurono. Nene was a stat monster like Drake, all A ranks except for E rank magic control. But Ikki had shown that Sword Master rank wasn't absolute. Drake was wary of Nene not because of her stats but because she was a desperado who'd transcended fate. Nene said, "Oops, discovered." Drake said, "You weren't hiding. The famed Yaksha princess, your aura is too obvious. Don't tease me. I heard you're a temporary teacher at Hagen Academy this year, should I call you Professor Saikyo?" Nene covered her face with her fan. So polite. She vanished, appearing near Drake. Drake retreated. Nene was surprised, she'd underestimated him. Drake said, "Is that Tarajiro Nango, trackless_step?" Nene nodded. "Yes. You reacted quickly. Trackless step, created by Tarajiro Nango, the fighting god, was a martial arts technique. Nene, his disciple, had learned it. The principle was simple, but the execution was magical. The brain can't process too much information at once, it prioritizes information based on subconscious ranking. Someone pointed it with a gun, focuses on the gun, who notices the button type. Trackless step made the user's movements unimportant information, slipping into the opponent's subconscious. Countering it wasn't difficult, focus on the desired information, but this is hard to do under pressure. One could also use magic perception, key, or smell to counter it. Nene wasn't surprised Drake countered trackless step, it was a minor technique against top fighters. Also, Nene relied on abilities, not martial arts, she'd mastered, not perfected, trackless step. What surprised Nene was that Drake resisted the causal influence. As a desperado, Nene's presence could affect ordinary sword masters' destinies. An ordinary student would have been affected, but Drake resisted. This intrigued Nene. Nene stepped forward, each step increased her presence, Drake felt heavier. Nene's ability was gravity manipulation, Drake felt several times the normal gravity. Ordinary people would suffer severe injuries under such gravity. Drake sensed no malice, Nene wanted him to bow. But Nene's magic control was E rank, she couldn't control her A rank magic, she accidentally used dangerous gravity. Drake, however, was only slightly uncomfortable. Nene, more interested, was about to increase the gravity when a hand knife struck her head. What are you doing to my student? Kurono said displeased. Ow! Nene cried, touching her head. I was just greeting a student. You worry too much, Kuro. Drake thought, what teacher greets students like that? He didn't say it aloud. If you two have something to discuss, I'll leave, Drake said politely. Nene approached normally, lifting Drake's chin with her fan. So considerate. Want a special reward. Kurono grabbed Nene's collar, ignoring her pleas. Stop it. You're committing indecent assault. Drake, uninterested in Nene's history, left. Kurono and Nene became serious. Kuro, that young man. Nene said pointedly. Kurono nodded. I know. He's recommended by the fighting god, he should be reliable. Nene scoffed. That old geezer wouldn't do that, it's suspicious. Kurono smiled. Nene was only this blunt when mentioning her teacher. Nene said, Kuro, I'm serious. You might not notice, but he resisted my causal influence. He's either a desperado or as strong as me. Either way, it's troublesome. Kurono said, if you stopped smiling, I might think you were worried about me. They were contemporaries, rivals, and close friends. They were similar, talented, hardworking, and mischievous. A girl's troubles. Early in the morning, Stella finished her morning routine and styled her hair in front of the mirror. She then struck a spirited pose, full of energy, preparing to head out. Kusakabe Kagami poked her head out from under her covers. School hadn't officially started yet, so there weren't any news stories for her to pursue. More importantly, she picked up her alarm clock, which showed it was not yet 5 o'clock. As a young woman, she truly admired Stella's willpower to forego even precious beauty sleep. Stella, Kagami yawned, are you going to be leaving this early every day? Stella, hands on her hips, declared, of course. Those stronger than me are all working hard, how could I be idle? Kagami gave a knowing smirk. I see. So Stella's working this hard because of someone. I smell a big scoop. Stella's face flushed crimson, and she frantically waved her hands in the air. Kagami, what are you talking about? We're not like that at all. Kagami had only intended a bit of playful teasing, but seeing Stella's reaction, her journalist instincts told her there was definitely something going on. Kagami sat up straight, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Oh my. So who is this, that Stella's referring to? Stella only arrived yesterday, so she couldn't have met many people yet. Could it be? Steam seemed to practically rise from Stella's head as she hurried to say, stop guessing. I have to go. Without another glance at Kagami, she spun around and fled the room. Kagami stroked her chin, a wicked smile playing on her lips. This princess was unexpectedly innocent, her reaction alone gave away her feelings. It seemed she was about to get a major scoop. The sun had only just begun to peak above the horizon, but sunlight already fell on Stella's face as she stepped out. Squinting her eyes, Stella quickly tried to compose herself, her heart inexplicably racing. It's all Kagami's fault, she muttered, all because of the way she spoke. A 16-year-old girl couldn't understand the strange feelings welling up inside her. She instinctively resorted to self-deception. Stella patted her cheeks, feeling the heat subside slightly before setting off towards her meeting place with Drake. Hagen Academy was enormous, so large, in fact, that there was a sizable forest right next to the school buildings. Drake had noticed this forest yesterday upon his arrival, so they had arranged to meet and train in a clearing within it. Walking along the forest path, Stella could already hear Drake's voice ahead. After a final check to ensure her attire was appropriate, Stella quickened her pace. Drake's figure soon appeared before her, but Stella also noticed another person standing there. Drake also saw Stella and waved. Stella-san, you've arrived. Stella approached, her expression darkening as she looked at the third party. The sudden drop in atmosphere left Drake completely bewildered, but he still spoke up. You two should know each other by now, so let's have a proper introduction. This is Kurigane Ikki, my roommate. Yesterday, he heard I was going to be training with Stella-san, and since Ikki-san has a daily training routine, I invited him to join us. The regeneration pod truly was cutting-edge technology. Yesterday, even after Ikki was so badly injured, he was completely healed before nightfall. Although he looked incredibly listless when he was brought back, it was only due to exhaustion, and he had fully recovered by dinner time. Drake suddenly remembered that when he'd first seen Ikki that morning, he had just finished training, which is why he'd invited him to train together. Ikki naturally wouldn't refuse, but he hadn't expected Stella's reaction to be so intense. Drake continued, introducing Ikki. I don't think I need to introduce Stella-san to you. Ikki nodded. Of course, it seems like no one at the academy doesn't know the Crimson Princess. But, did I do something to offend Stella-san? Ikki asked this purely because Stella had been giving him rather unfriendly looks up until this point. Ikki had experienced all kinds of malice growing up, but Stella's attitude was a first. It wasn't disdain or disgust, it felt more like he'd done something to hinder her, causing this reaction. Ikki was overly kind, easily forgiving even malicious intent. In this situation, he immediately started to reflect on his own actions. Stella suppressed her irritation. She knew her attitude was off, so she said, it's nothing to do with Ikki-san. I'm just a little irritable from lack of sleep. Drake suddenly understood. Ah, I see. Then we can start training a bit later. Rest is important too. Stella, afraid Drake would think she was being spoiled, quickly added, it's okay, this is fine. I'll get used to it quickly. Ikki, observing from the side, remained silent. He felt Stella wasn't being entirely truthful, but he wasn't going to be so tactless as to call her out on it. What surprised Ikki was that Drake, so perceptive in battle, actually believed Stella's flimsy excuse. It seemed this man was unexpectedly obtuse outside of combat. Perhaps it was a case of being too close to the situation. It was ironic considering Drake had once told Asta not to learn from Yami, when he himself wasn't that much better. With that little interlude out of the way, the actual training began. Drake looked at the two of them. While this might sound a bit blunt, you both have overlooked weaknesses within yourselves. These aren't things like magic power or abilities that are innate, they are things that can be improved through training. By training to overcome these weaknesses, you can both become even stronger. First, both of you need to work on your magic control. Question marks popped up above both Ikki and Stella's heads. Drake nodded. That's right, both of your magic control is far too crude. Ikki and Stella were at completely opposite ends of the magic power spectrum, but their magic control was equally underdeveloped. Ikki's was due to his extremely low magic power. No matter how he used it, it was gone in an instant. Stella's was due to having too much magic power. What others would consider wasteful was nothing to her. To this, Drake could only say, your understanding of magic control is too narrow. Magic control isn't just about conserving magic power output for your abilities. Simply stating this wasn't persuasive enough, so Drake decided to demonstrate. Drake spread his two palms open, and two identical flames appeared in his hands. Then, the flame in his left hand suddenly began to contract, the flames deepening from orange to crimson red, and then, after surpassing a certain threshold, turning blue. Both Ikki and Stella could sense that the amount of magic used to create both flames was exactly the same. Yet, the blue flame was undeniably many times more dangerous. Looking at the two of them, Drake said, compressing magic, that's one of the things you can achieve by improving your magic control. Ikki, if you had better magic control, you wouldn't have that magic overflow when using your ultimate technique, One Sword Asura, and you could extend its duration. And Stella-san, with enhanced magic control, even your ordinary attacks could unleash power comparable to ultimate techniques. Both of them showed expectant expressions. Drake had truly hit upon their weaknesses. Tedious malice. Hagen Academy's opening ceremony took place in the auditorium. Shinguji Kurono, in her first ceremony as principal, announced only one thing: the abolishment of the Academy's long-standing ability value-based selection for the 7-star Sword Festival representatives, replacing it with practical combat tests. Surprisingly, there was little to no opposition from the students, only a few grumbled about the added inconvenience. However, this situation was arguably even worse. The majority of students felt that neither ability value selection nor practical combat selection had much to do with them. To put it bluntly, it was self-imposed apathy. It seemed that Shinguji Kurono had a long and arduous road ahead of her in her efforts to change the Academy's atmosphere. After the ceremony concluded, the students returned to their respective classrooms for their first class meeting. On the large screen of the tiered classroom, an animation of celebratory fireworks, similar to those seen at birthday parties, appeared. A woman with a microphone stepped onto the podium. New students, welcome to Hagen Academy. I am your homeroom teacher, Yuri Oriki. This is my first time being a homeroom teacher, and I'm still a fresh-faced newbie, so please call me Yuri-chan. While we won't have a lesson today, I do have some information regarding the 7-Star Sword Festival. Sitting between Ikki Kurogane and Stella, Drake clearly heard Stella's muttered comment. She seems totally unenthusiastic. Stella's assessment stemmed from the teacher's alarmingly unwell appearance. Her complexion was an unhealthy pale, and the dark circles under her eyes were far more severe than those of someone who had pulled an all-nighter for a week straight. She looked like she could collapse at any moment. Drake nodded in agreement with Stella's assessment. It wasn't just a lack of enthusiasm. Drake could clearly sense the aura of decay that only comes with a terminal illness emanating from Yuri Oriki. However, Drake also understood that this was Yuri Oriki's weapon as a sword master. Yuri Oriki, whose title was Jolly Roger, was rated as a C-class sword master despite her magic power, magic control, and physical abilities all falling below C rank. This was because of her ability, pain sharing, a type of causal interference. She only needed to activate her ability to make her enemies feel the pain she herself was enduring, causing them to collapse. And this pain was something she felt constantly. Therefore, when Ikki Kurogane said she was a good teacher, Drake also expressed his agreement. Yuri Oriki continued her introduction on the podium. Therefore, the intra-school tournament will begin next week. The match schedule and opponents will be sent to everyone's student handbooks via email, so please be sure to check them. When Yuri Oriki mentioned the matter she cared most about, Stella raised her hand to ask a question. Teacher. Yuri Oriki shook her finger. No, I won't answer unless you call me Yuri-chan. Drake truly admired Yuri Oriki. She maintained such an optimistic attitude despite being chronically ill since childhood. Stella, however, was speechless, the butterfly-shaped hair accessory on her ponytail drooping. Yuri-chan, Stella reluctantly uttered the slightly intimate term. Yes. What is it, Stella-san? Stella asked. About how many matches will there be in total? Yuri Oriki counted on her fingers. Each person will have to participate in at least 10 matches, meaning there'll be a match roughly every 3 days. This competition format was actually quite advantageous for Ikki Kurogane, since his One Sword Asura could only be used once a day. Therefore, while others were complaining about the inconvenience of the matches, Ikki felt a sense of relief. It seemed he wasn't even considering the option of forfeiting, as Yuri Oriki had mentioned. So everyone, please give it your all in the coming year. Let's all do our best. Yeah, cough. Yuri Oriki, who had just been encouraging everyone, suddenly spat a mouthful of blood, collapsing onto the floor. Stella stood up in surprise. Yuri-chan. Is this some kind of murder scene? Drake was also taken aback. Only Ikki Kurogane, who was used to this, calmly covered his face, muttering, as expected. After a flurry of commotion, Ikki Kurogane and Drake together helped Yuri Oriki to the infirmary. Drake was astonished to find that the infirmary actually stocked blood bags, and the doctor proceeded to treat Yuri Oriki with practiced ease. Even after they left, Drake felt his worldview had been irrevocably altered. Regardless, Drake muttered as they walked, a body that coughs up a liter of blood every day is just too strange. Ikki chuckled. I couldn't accept it at first either, but you get used to it. Because Yuri Oriki's collapse had been so sudden, everyone in the classroom was somewhat at a loss. Drake and Ikki had returned to inform everyone that the class meeting was over. However, as soon as they returned to the classroom, a crowd of students swarmed around them, and Stella, who had been about to approach them, was immediately pushed aside by the throng of girls. I can't believe I'm in the same class as both of you. Are you two friends? I've wanted to chat with both of you for ages. Me too. Both of you are so handsome. Ikki Kurogane had never experienced this kind of treatment before and was momentarily flustered. Drake was the same, he truly lacked the experience to handle this kind of situation. Stella, meanwhile, was practically fuming, staring impassively at Drake who was surrounded by the girls. Ikki Kurogane said, puzzled, what's going on? I don't remember doing anything that would make me popular. As Drake was dealing with the chattering girls, he suddenly sensed a wave of killing intent. But when Drake looked over, he only saw Stella's raised chin. Thinking it might have been a hallucination, Drake said to Ikki Kurogane, it's clearly because of the mock battle from before. Someone must have uploaded the video of the fight to the internet, it seems a lot of people have seen it. Kagami looked at Stella, a mischievous grin spreading across her face, she had found her target. To Stella's astonishment, Kagami directly squeezed through the crowd to Drake's side, unceremoniously wrapping her arm around his. Drake felt absolutely no joy at the physical contact, the most troublesome person had arrived. Drake had already heard from Stella that her roommate was a clingy person, but now he was experiencing it firsthand. Nice to meet you, Drake-san. I'm Kusakabe Kagami, and I'm planning to establish a news club. I've been really looking forward to meeting you. Coming from the mysterious Shinryu Temple, and possessing even higher ability values than Stella-san, Drake-san must have a lot of big news stories surrounding you. Please, by all means, let me conduct an interview. Hey, Kagami, you're too close. Stella would have been too embarrassed to say anything to the other girls she didn't know, but since Kagami was already a friend, she didn't hold back. Kagami, after being pulled away, said in an innocent tone, why did you pull me away, Stella-san? Could it be that there's something going on between Stella-san and Drake-san? Stella wasn't fooled by Kagami's act, she was clearly enjoying herself. But Kagami's words were still embarrassing, no, incredibly misleading. Worst of all, the other girls, once the topic of romance was brought up, also became excited, their gazes making Stella blush even more intensely. Drake, meanwhile, was completely oblivious to what was happening between the girls. Just then, an irritating voice cut through the air. Just an exchange student and a repeater, you're both getting a little too arrogant. Drake had sensed a current of malice for some time, but he understood, it was normal for boys that age to feel jealous seeing others surrounded by girls. He just hadn't expected anyone to actively seek a confrontation because of it, this malice was truly tedious. Kasagano Ikki. You're both getting a little too arrogant. A boy who had been sitting to the side, along with his 4 lackeys, shoved their way through the surrounding girls to stand before Drake and Ikki Kurogane. To be honest, the 5 students' appearances perfectly matched their behavior, the quintessential image of villains and their henchmen. Of course, this was likely why they weren't popular with the girls and were reduced to jealously watching Drake and Ikki. Drake and Ikki had become famous due to their previous mock battle, but their good looks also contributed to the girls surrounding them. Drake, with his handsome face and complex aura reminiscent of a mythical beast, possessed a captivating, contrasting charm. Ikki was also the type that was very popular. He had an exceptionally delicate face, and despite his strong and resolute personality, he had, in Kagami's words, an air that evoked maternal instincts in girls. Honestly, Drake was displeased at being envied for such a reason, especially since the other party was hardly concealing their jealousy and was actively seeking a confrontation. All student knights in Japan would enter one of the 7-star academies located in their respective regions, so someone in the class recognized the troublemaker. Manaba, a girl said, aren't you just jealous of them? How pathetic. The leader's name was Manaba. Perhaps his exceptionally large build was why he'd become the leader of this group. His lackeys were adept at flattery. What did you say? You, how dare you talk to Manaba like that? Seeing this lackey threaten the girls, both Drake and Ikki couldn't stand it anymore. Ikki tried to restrain himself, hoping for a peaceful resolution, but Drake had no such patience. In an instant, Drake closed the distance to the lackey, grabbing his wrist as he threatened to strike a girl. Hey, aren't you looking for trouble with me? Then don't bother others. Drake said coldly, his eyes like a beast's, radiating an aura that seemed to threaten to incinerate the boy. The lackey felt like his wrist was being crushed by a red-hot iron clamp, but even more terrifying was Drake's gaze. Terrified, the boy went limp, Drake released him, and he collapsed to the floor, speechless. The girl who had almost been hit blushed. Drake-sama saved me. So cool. Drake was taken aback. I appreciate your gratitude, but, Sama, is excessive. And Stella, don't randomly turn evil. Perhaps embarrassed by his lackey's behavior, Manaba stepped forward. So impressive, exchange student. A- rank, huh? Just a reputation gained by bullying that F rank. Drake instantly realized Manaba was not only ugly but also an idiot. The Alliance couldn't be unaware that ability values didn't represent everything, yet they still used them to determine Swordmaster rank. This was because ability values were the easiest and most reliable data to obtain. This man, to belittle Drake, had uttered something utterly illogical. And that senior over there, so pitiful. An F rank used as a stepping stone. But a stepping stone should act like one. Why are you shamelessly getting cozy with girls in class? One of you, come out and prove why you're so arrogant. He and his 3 remaining lackeys materialized their spiritual armor. They weren't using the fantasy form. They intended to teach Drake and Ikki a lesson. Manaba was only looking at Drake. Ikki, being F rank, wasn't a threat. He was wary of Drake, whose ability values were even higher than Stella's. Was he foolish or overconfident? Manaba believed he could win. He bet Drake wouldn't use full power in the classroom, given the rules against using spiritual armor. He was confident he could launch a surprise attack. He'd be the one who defeated the A-rank exchange student. Drake stepped forward, the air grew hotter. You're pointing weapons at me, you're prepared to clash with me, then. Manaba regretted this, but he had to continue. Drake smirked. Manaba wouldn't get his chance. Drake wouldn't use spiritual armor against these lackeys. As Drake was about to move, Ikki stopped him. Leave it to me. Drake looked at him. I understand. Ikki, you're so kind. Drake didn't mean Ikki would treat them kindly. Ikki would fight to prove his strength, thus highlighting Drake's power. Ikki's kindness stemmed from not wanting Drake to be questioned because of him. Manaba's group was intimidated by Drake, but they felt disrespected by Ikki. Just an F-rank repeater. Attack. Manaba's lackeys charged. Ikki's focus intensified. In a movie, this would be slow motion. In a life or death situation, focus intensifies, awareness and perception speed up. Ikki could enter this state willingly. This was natural for someone who mastered martial arts. Ikki blocked the fastest attacker, tripping another with a kick. He then approached the last attacker. Ikki easily dealt with the attacker, then faced Manaba, who pointed his spiritual armor, a large caliber revolver, at Ikki. Ikki, somehow holding an eraser, flicked it. It struck the ceiling, jamming the revolver. Manaba froze. He hadn't noticed Ikki approaching. Ikki didn't attack. Now you know how strong Drake-san is. Silence fell. Most hadn't fought before. Ikki had defeated 4 opponents without spiritual armor. They were speechless. Then, applause. A small girl with silver gray hair clapped. Amazing. Overwhelming strength. The common folk can't touch you, brother. Ikki recognized her. Shizuku. You've grown. I didn't recognize you. It's been 4 years. No change would be strange, the girl said. Drake remembered Ikki mentioning his sister enrolling at Hagen Academy. This was Kurigane Shizuku. I always wanted to see you. Shizuku hugged Ikki. Drake was confused. Something was wrong. Could it be? Don't lie to me, Ikki. Your real name is Kasagano Ikki. Deep Sea Witch. Kurogane Shizuku, a B-rank sword master, was a prodigious talent, second only to Stella in this year's entrance exam results. Sword masters with distinctive characteristics or outstanding abilities usually have titles. Kurogane Shizuku, due to her powerful water elemental manipulation ability, earned the title of Witch of the Deep Sea. This was the extent of Drake's knowledge of the girl before meeting her. Meeting her added a new layer of understanding. To this, Kurogane Shizuku replied, "There's nothing to question. That wouldn't happen in my country." Stella couldn't help but interject. Drake also said, dumbfounded, "Yeah. In my country, that would get you a broken leg." Actually, Ikki Kurogane was the most flustered. However, he managed to regain his composure and quickly said, "Shizuku, your way of thinking is truly strange." Kurogane Shizuku's expression remained unchanged, and she smiled. "Others are others, we are us. We are family." On the first day of the new semester, the entire class of Year 1, Class 1, found common ground on this one particular issue. Even if Ikki Kurogane were the most obtuse person, hearing such sensitive words, he finally understood. "What are you saying, Shizuku? A girl shouldn't say such." Kurogane Shizuku's smile became even more enchanting, and she said, "He, of course, it's a joke. Looking at you blushing like this, you're so cute, brother." The sister in Ikki Kurogane's memory was still the shy and easily embarrassed little girl. How had she become like this? Kurogane Shizuku had absolutely no intention of letting Ikki Kurogane off the hook. Wrapping her arms around his neck, she leaned in close. "Well, let's not worry about those minor details. Let Shizuku get a little closer to her brother. Do you know how much Shizuku has missed her brother these past 4 years?" Drake covered his face. Although I don't object to you two siblings getting closer, you should still pay attention to the setting." Ikki Kurogane was startled back to his senses by Drake's words and quickly pushed Kurogane Shizuku away. "That's right, this is a classroom, we can't continue this here." Kurogane Shizuku showed a slight hint of displeasure. "What a shame. Then let's find a quiet place later to let me pour out my affections for my brother." However, Kurogane Shizuku turned her head to look at Drake, her expression unfriendly. Drake knew he had interrupted their good time, but it wasn't necessary for her to be so hostile. Kurogane Shizuku bowed to Drake with impeccable etiquette. "As a friend of my brother, your understanding of sibling affection is truly commendable." How polite. Truly worthy of a young lady from the prestigious Kurogane family. Drake's compliment was unceremoniously interrupted by Kurogane Shizuku. "But, it was you, Mr. Drake, who defeated my brother." Drake finally understood why Kurogane Shizuku was so hostile towards him. It was because of the mock battle. Kurogane Shizuku loved her brother more than anyone and believed in his strength more than anyone else. Therefore, she found his defeat even more unacceptable than Ikki Kurogane himself. Ikki Kurogane also sensed Kurogane Shizuku's hostility towards Drake and quickly tugged at her. "Hey, Shizuku, that's incredibly rude to others." Then, Ikki Kurogane said to Drake, "I apologize, my sister is like this because of me." Drake raised his hand. "I understand. But I'm truly envious that you have such a considerate and beautiful younger sister." Actually, someone like Kurogane Shizuku was surprisingly easy to get along with. Drake was keenly aware of how to ease the tension with her. To summarize Kurogane Shizuku's perspective in one sentence, "As long as you praise my brother, we're friends. If you support my brother, then we're sworn allies." Therefore, as soon as Drake said this, Kurogane Shizuku's immediately relax. "My apologies, I was rude earlier. I never expected my brother to have such a considerate friend. I hope you'll continue to look after my brother." Ikki Kurogane scratched his head, unable to understand how the two of them had suddenly seemed to reach some strange consensus, their relationship inexplicably becoming amicable. Drake looked at the two of them and said, "I just arrived, and I haven't had a chance to get many daily necessities yet. It's almost the weekend, and Ikki and I had planned to go to the mall together. If Shizuku-san doesn't mind, would you like to come along?" Kurogane Shizuku's eyes instantly lit up, and seeing Drake's seemingly suggestive expression, she immediately understood his meaning. It seemed her previous assessment of Drake had been incomplete. Her brother's friend was definitely a great guy. Giving Drake a discreet thumbs up, Kurogane Shizuku said outwardly in a dignified manner, if it's not too much trouble, then I'll gladly accept your kind invitation. I want to go too. Stella couldn't help but blurt out. However, when everyone looked at her, she couldn't help but blush. I also just arrived in this country and have a lot of things I need to buy. Stella's explanation was believable enough. Drake didn't suspect anything else. However, Kagami showed a strange expression. The princess's entourage would surely have anticipated her needs. Moreover, the King of Vermilion was a devoted daughter lover. If it weren't for the limited dormitory space, the king would have been happy to move the entire castle to Japan. Instantly seeing through Stella's ulterior motives, Kagami smirked and said, then it'll be like a double date. A double date refers to two close couples going out together. Generally, the two men or two women in the two couples are good friends, leading to a more relaxed and enjoyable experience. Double date. Drake and Kurogane Shizuku remained calm. It was Stella and Ikki Kurogane who were flustered. After all, dates are something that only couples do. Stella wasn't mentally prepared for this, and Ikki Kurogane was afraid of being perceived as a creepy brother type. Regardless of the two who were still agonizing over the situation, Drake said, then it's a date this weekend. The date. Because they had a shopping trip planned, they skipped their usual morning workout. Drake and Ikki Kurogane waited at the dormitory entrance. Both were casually dressed, showing no awareness of their date with the girls. In contrast, the two girls were meticulously dressed. Stella wore a knee-length dress with a pale yellow jacket and a stylish beret, looking youthful and energetic. However, she was less formally dressed than Kurogane Shizuku, who wore a gothic princess dress. Her petite figure and light makeup made her look like a delicate doll. Drake nudged Ikki. The girls dressed up for you, expressing appreciation as gentlemanly. Ikki finally reacted, greeting Shizuku. She blushed. She seemed high attack, low defense. Stella approached Drake, blushing. How do I look? Drake gave a thumbs up. Beautiful. The dress suits you. Great. Stella whispered. Kagami's advice had been helpful. Then, Drake saw a third person with Stella and Shizuku. A tall, handsome man with a melancholic air. Unlike Ikki's delicate features, this man possessed true androgynous beauty. Stella introduced him. This is Shizuku's roommate, Nagi Arisuan. Nagi spoke in a languid voice. Nice to meet you, Drake-san. Call me Alice. Drake was surprised. Arisuan sounded like Alice, but Alice is a female name. Nagi seemed to sense Drake's confusion. I have a male body, but a female heart. He was serious. Drake sensed no joking, it was Nagi's chosen way of life. Drake didn't mind Nagi's gender, what concerned him was his strength. Only Stella and Drake were A-rank freshmen, there were fewer than 5 B ranks, excluding Shizuku. Nagi wasn't listed. He was at most C rank, but his ki was different. His strength wasn't from training like Ikki's but from high stats, like Stella's. He was likely B rank, possibly A rank. His dark, sharp, slightly bloody ki, this was the aura of an underworld assassin. Drake was wary. Nagi was hiding his rank and identity. What was his purpose at Hagen Academy? He lacked knowledge of this world's plot. Nagi showed no malice. Drake remained calm. After greetings, they headed to the shopping street. It was close. Drake wouldn't suffer from transportation. Shizuku naturally took Ikki's hand. Ikki wanted to pull away but saw Shizuku's pitiful expression. Stella hesitated, unable to muster the courage. Walking beside Drake, Stella whispered, seriously, boys should be more proactive. Drake didn't notice, Nagi did. He smiled. Stella-san is cute. Stella blushed, fearing Nagi would say something embarrassing. Nagi approached. I understand, I'll cheer you on silently. Stella pretended not to understand. Each with their thoughts, they reached the shopping street. Drake, a minimalist, quickly found what he needed. The others weren't there to shop, they wandered. Drake sat on a bench, feeling his legs tremble. Stella's stamina was lower than his, she couldn't keep up with him and Ikki initially. Ikki ran 20 kilometers daily at full speed interspersed with jogging, pushing his cardiovascular system. Drake tried it worked. Stella joined, collapsing on the first day. She finished the second day but vomited. Ikki wanted to adjust the pace, but Drake stopped him. Stella hadn't given up, they couldn't insult her resolve. She was strong. But Stella, who couldn't keep up during training, had incredible stamina shopping, a female talent. They were at a men's store. Shizuku wanted to buy a reunion gift for Ikki. Ikki let Shizuku and Nagi dress him. Stella noticed Drake sitting outside. She left the clothes and went to him. Drake-san, aren't you looking for clothes? Drake tugged his scarf. Spare me. I hate shopping. Stella looked at his scarf. It was summer, yet he wore it. That scarf is unique. You never take it off, Stella said calmly. Drake smiled. It's from someone important. Stella was uneasy. Important? A girlfriend? She stared at him, fearing a yes. Drake laughed. What? I don't have a girlfriend, it's from my foster father. Stella only heard what she wanted. No girlfriend, that's great. Drake facepalmed. Was that good news? A man in a black coat passed Drake. Drake's nose twitched. He grabbed the man's shoulder. Before the man could react, Drake choked him, pressing his head to the ground. The tiles shattered. The man fainted. Drake, what are you doing? Stella shrieked. The others came out. Drake reached into the man's coat, pulling out a familiar object, an M4 assault rifle. It wasn't a toy. Rebellion. Drake ripped off the man's coat, revealing his full appearance. The man's face and body were disproportionate, his body was unusually bulky. Underneath his coat, he wore combat gear and a tactical vest, with numerous magazines and grenades attached. Drake hadn't acted because of this. His keen sense of smell detected a peculiar odor, the pungent smell of industrial oil, gunpowder, and metal. He knew what this combination meant. Drake sensed the man's key. The chaotic, murky malice was obvious. It wasn't directed at anyone specific but at everyone in his line of sight. This was undoubtedly a dangerous individual. Drake didn't know his intentions, but intervention was necessary. Seeing the assault rifle, the others understood Drake's actions, but identifying the man was crucial. Nagi Arisuan said, that gear, he's from Rebellion. Drake asked, Rebellion? Alice, are you sure? Nagi nodded. I've been involved in similar incidents, this is Rebellion's standard equipment. If it's Rebellion, it's trouble, they never act alone. There are others in this mall, they're planning something. Drake didn't doubt him. It's urgent. Ikki, contact the principal, report Rebellion's presence. Have her contact the security forces. And request authorization to use spiritual armor. Ikki nodded, contacting the principal. Drake turned to the others. You three, evacuate the civilians. I'll find the other Rebellion members. Time is short, let's move. They knew the urgency and acted. No one underestimated Rebellion, one of the world's three major forces. The International Magic Knights Alliance, another major force, called Sword Masters, Magic Knights, hoping they'd follow the knightly way, protect the powerless. This formed the basis of societal structure. Rebellion was different, they misused Sword Masters' abilities. They believed Sword Masters were chosen by God, and considered ordinary people inferior. Their terrorist acts aimed to destroy the current societal structure and create their utopia, a new world ruled by the chosen over the inferior. Ironically, rebellion consisted mostly of inferior people, called believers, who caused more destruction than the Sword Masters, seeking New World citizen status. Only a few were actual Sword Masters, most notably the 12 Apostles. This was Drake's knowledge of rebellion, from official sources. They weren't just terrorists. However, Drake had never seen rebellion in action. His first impression wasn't good. If they were all like the man he'd subdued, he'd just defeat them. Wait, this setting, another White Knight Eye. Two worlds had the same villainous organization. He was an expert at dealing with rebellion. In the previous world, Drake hadn't stopped Patry from sacrificing the Eye of the Midnight Sun. He wouldn't show mercy to terrorists here. Drake's eyes were filled with killing intent. Time for some exercise. Initially, Drake relied on the smell of firearms and malice to locate rebellion members, but it became unnecessary. In the hot weather, their attire was conspicuous. Drake dragged a short man to a deserted corner, discarding him like trash. This was the fifth rebellion member. To avoid panic and alerting others, Drake had to act cautiously. The others gathered. Ikki said, I contacted the principal, she authorized spiritual armor use. The security forces are coming. Nagi said, civilians outside are evacuated. Many rebellion members are inside, they're holding about 50 hostages in the food court plaza. They're likely targeting the mall for funding. Drake nodded. I caught 4 more, likely guards. The others are in the food court. Ikki said, the situation is unclear, the security room is likely occupied, a direct assault is risky. Nagi said, this is my time to shine. My ability is perfect. He summoned his spiritual armor, a silver dagger, darkness hermit, perfect for assassination, combined with his shadow manipulation ability. Hold on tight. Everyone held on. Nagi used his ultimate technique, shadow walk. Their shadows became a black pool. They sank into it. They entered the shadows, moving through shadow pathways, perfect for infiltration. They bypassed Rebellion's defenses and reached the plaza. Shadows in the corner rippled. Nagi emerged, pulling the others out. Drake experienced shadow space for the first time. It was like a dark gray river, no air, but less resistance than water. They assessed the situation. About 20 believers, each with an assault rifle, an action team. A sword master apostle would lead them. Drake saw a tattooed man in a black robe with gold embroidery, rebellion apostle attire. Even if they defeated him, the believers might shoot the hostages. They had to eliminate everyone before they fired. Drake's power. Besides Drake, the others quickly assessed the perilous situation in the plaza. Honestly, even having gained entry to the plaza didn't significantly improve their predicament. 20 ordinary individuals, even armed with assault rifles, weren't particularly difficult to handle. Stella alone could easily dispatch them. The difficulty lay in the presence of numerous hostages. Using high-powered techniques risked collateral damage. Furthermore, the apostles' abilities remained unknown, a crucial factor to consider. The most pressing issue was that the believers had the hostages completely surrounded, and their guns were all cocked and ready. It was no longer a matter of if there would be accidental injuries, but rather the very real possibility of rebellion actively harming the hostages. Ikki Kurogane said, troubled, this truly is the worst-case scenario. Kurogane Shizuku declared, brother, don't worry, leave it to me. Drake's gaze turned to her. He knew the best solution was to unveil his hidden abilities to neutralize everyone immediately, there was no other way. Therefore, he was very interested in Kurogane Shizuku's proposed plan. Kurogane Shizuku said confidently, I'm quite confident in my magic control. I can discreetly deploy a protective barrier around the hostages. Without the hostages hindering us, those guys definitely won't stand a chance against brother. Drake nodded. Compared to his own approach, Kurogane Shizuku's plan was indeed more suitable. Ikki Kurogane exclaimed in surprise, Shizuku can even do something like that. Drake stated, I've told you before that magic control is incredibly important, now you know. Let's proceed as Shizuku suggested. Once the barrier is deployed, Ikki, Stella, and I will charge in. I'll take on the apostle, the rest are yours. Alice, you'll provide rear support, handle any unexpected situations. Everyone nodded in unison, then prepared themselves for action. Kurogane Shizuku crouched down, her hands pressed against the ground. Drake only felt a faint ripple of energy, but upon closer inspection, he detected nothing. It seemed that Kurogane Shizuku's A-rank magic control was well earned, she was able to activate her ultimate technique so silently. While waiting for Kurogane Shizuku's barrier to be completed, everyone kept a close watch on the situation in the plaza. However, as expected, the unexpected occurred. Don't bully mommy. A small boy threw his ice cream at the pants of one of the rebellion believers. It was certainly not an attack, but it was enough to enrage a terrorist. The believer, seeing the creamy stain on his trousers, revealed a ferocious expression. You insignificant inferior beings, you dare to provoke me, a proud citizen of the New World. With that, he raised his gun and pointed it directly at the little boy. A slender woman with a prominent baby bump desperately rushed to the boy's side, shielding him in her embrace. It seemed that the pregnant woman was the boy's mother, and she was carrying his younger sibling in her womb. I am so sorry. I am so very sorry. He's just a child, please forgive him. Hey, what are you doing? I explicitly stated that no hostages were to be killed, or you defying my orders. The apostle, clad in his ceremonial robe, shouted. Sweat beaded on the believer's forehead as he hastily replied, Bisho-sama, it was this brat, he dared to throw ice cream at me. Drake had heard of Bisho before. While not one of the 12 apostles of rebellion, He had been responsible for numerous large-scale massacres and was a highly dangerous criminal with a substantial bounty on his head from the Alliance. Bishop quickly demonstrated the extent of his cruelty to Drake. Well, that's quite unfortunate. Indeed, people must be held accountable for their actions, guilt demands punishment, and punishment is absolution, that's my motto. Since he has committed a crime, then paying for it with his life shouldn't be a problem, should it? The apostle also knew how capricious and volatile Bishop was. Upon hearing his words, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that he wouldn't be eliminated by his superior. However, his previous fear needed an outlet, so following Bishop's order, he turned the gun towards the little boy and his mother, and with a cruel smile, pulled the trigger. The lead bullets shot from the barrel, but before they could reach their target, they were completely dissolved by a burst of flames. Stella stood in front of the believer, her voice cold. You imbeciles, you actually dare to do such a thing to a pregnant woman and a child. Do you have no shame whatsoever? A sword master. Seeing the flames engulfing Stella, the believer, even without recognizing her identity, knew that she was a being of a completely different order than himself. My, isn't this the second princess of the Vermilion Empire? To encounter you in such a place, what incredibly good fortune. Bishop approached, a sickening smile plastered on his face. Stella summoned the Leviathan, pointing its tip at Bishop. I challenge you on behalf of these hostages. If I win, you will release all the hostages. Bishop sneered coldly. Such a knightly attitude. But I am no knight, and therefore, I refuse. With that, Bishop raised his hand, and all the other believers immediately raised their guns. The gun barrels weren't pointed at Stella, for they all knew that even if more than 20 assault rifles fired simultaneously, they wouldn't be able to harm Stella in the slightest. Therefore, their target was the other hostages. Despicable. Stella cried out, her voice filled with both urgency and fury, but that was all she could manage to articulate. Bishop burst into laughter, saying, I didn't originally intend to harm the hostages, but who could have known that Her Highness the Princess would so impatiently jump out and cause such a commotion? Furthermore, several of our less intelligent members have disappeared. It must have been you, wouldn't you agree? Considering how diligently Her Highness the Princess has worked, as long as you agree to my proposal, I can refrain from harming these hostages. What proposal? Stella wouldn't for a moment believe that the other party would be so kind. As expected, the man's smile became even more nauseating. There is a well-known method of atonement. When one commits a transgression, one must apologize. Her Highness the Princess only needs to apologize, but it must be a full, prostrate apology. Of course, I, a mere Bishop, wouldn't dare to command Her Highness the Princess. You are welcome to refuse, but if you do. Bishop knew that Stella wouldn't refuse, he was merely attempting to humiliate her. Just as he anticipated, Stella would not stand idly by and allow innocent civilians to be harmed before her eyes. Biting her lip, Stella, amidst the jeering laughter of the rebellion believers, reached for the buttons on her clothing. Enough. No one noticed how the scarf-wearing youth had appeared, but the rebellion believers, who had been eagerly anticipating the spectacle, began to grumble their discontent. Smile retracted the perverse expression from his face. Only as a sword master did he sense the dangerous aura emanating from this young man. However, he wasn't the least bit flustered, because the lives of the hostages were still firmly in his grasp. Drake's face was grim. Cultists were already despicable enough, but a lecherous cultist was even more reprehensible. And he had even dared to offend his friends. He was utterly deserving of death. I've had enough of your disgusting antics, so I've decided to dispense with the gentler methods of eliminating you all. Bishop sneered coldly. Such boastful words. Your atonement won't be as simple as a mere prostration. Fire. Let him know the consequences of provoking me. Drake took a single step onto the ground, his scarf billowing in the air. Everyone in the open plaza felt a surge of dark crimson before their eyes, and the air grew intensely hot. The sounds of firearms clattering to the ground and bodies hitting the pavement rang out continuously. All the rebellion believers collapsed to the ground, unable to even twitch, let alone inflict harm on anyone. Bishop also slumped to the ground, his voice trembling as he stammered, You. What did you do? Mana Zone. Dragon's Nest. You vile beings who only prey on the weak, you truly lack the courage to face the majesty of a dragon. Drake said coldly. The unfortunate reality was that the hostages had also collapsed. This was precisely why Drake had considered Shizuku's plan earlier. This technique didn't discriminate between friend and foe. While it didn't cause physical harm, it still posed a degree of danger. Stella used the levating to support herself, preventing her from collapsing due to weakness in her legs, but as she looked at Drake's back, amidst her fear, she felt other emotions stirring within her. What was that power Drake used? So terrifying. Did Drake get so angry because of me? Could that mean he? So this is what it's like to be protected, it's not so bad. Perhaps her thoughts were straying too far, but Stella gradually began to ignore her fear. Drake was still unaware that Stella had managed to withstand the effects of his magic domain by focusing on unrelated thoughts. He was currently more concerned with the enemy before him. Thanks for watching.